Hamster, check out the new Smash Bros. For 3DS!
It looks terrible.
Oh, forget the visuals, it's portable!
Why would I want to break my analog over a game I'd rather play on console anyway?
Then you'd definitely prefer the other new Smash game for Wii U.
Wait, there's 2 new games?
Yeah, and technically they're different. Marginally.
And for the Wii U? Yeah, screw that marketing disaster. I'd much rather invest in the next real Nintendo console and play all the superior ports of that thing's library instead.
Yeah, same. All in favor of skipping these two to play better video games now?
Yeah, screw future me who might have to review those later.
As if that'll ever happen.
What do you mean I gotta buy both versions just to get Mewtwo?
I can't believe they actually thought flicking this little analog for smash attacks was a good idea.
If the whole point of Smash is about the new fighters, then why are the only cool ones in the DLC?
I can't even sprint!
Oh boy, do I have some opinions about this one. These one.
Yeah, so Nintendo knew their Wii U sucked donkey balls, so they requested the new Smash release on both Wii U and 3DS to try and drive up sales and attention for the poor thing.
In the end, it only added to Wii U frustration and confusion further by muddying the waters as to whether this was actually a home console or an add-on to the Wii itself.
And yes, these games are different, so we're gonna focus on just those differences and features since you probably already know the Smash song and dance by now.
The rosters, however, are the same, even though 3DS limitations resulted in them cutting the Ice Climbers, and I will never forgive them.
Both games also have your expected staples as well, like Classic and All-Star modes, home run contests, multi-man smash, and hordes of trophies to collect. However, with some marginal differences scattered throughout.
But get this, since each version had unique stages, there was no crossplay between 3DS and Wii U. Instead, Nintendo expected players to customize the stats and movesets of characters and record this information to their new amiibo figures to transfer their fighters' custom data to another game so you could bypass this boneheaded lack of crossplay.
That's right. Amiibos exist because Nintendo couldn't figure out crossplay between two of their own current gen consoles.
I'll be honest, customizing a fighter's moveset sounds cool at first, but it quickly becomes tedious and takes a tremendous amount of the fun out of the game over time. That's why from then on, Smash Amiibos were purely used for recording stat changes of leveled up AI fighters instead.
Anywho's, there was one glaring omission from the game that devastated fans. The lack of any adventure mode or anything even remotely resembling the Subspace Emissary in any capacity in either version.
On the 3DS, you instead got Smash Run, a multiplayer event where you and a few other suckers tricked into wasting their time would hit things in a large environment with various Subspace Emissary themed enemies from across Nintendo's history to collect some stat buffs. And once the timer runs out, you all play a normal game of Smash with those buffs you acquired before all realizing that you could have just played several actual rounds of unaltered Smash and had more fun.
On the Wii U, however, we got Smash Tour, an atrocious randomized board game where players moved around a Mario Party style board collecting fighters and stat buffs until eventually everyone gives up and plays something fun. I've honestly never seen a single Smash Tour game end properly and unironically without everyone giving up halfway through.
Yeah, other than that, the 3DS had Street Pass gimmicks and that's about it.
Yeah, and the Wii U also got event matches.
Wait, what? That's exclusive?
Special Smash.
The freaking customization options are exclusive?
Tournament mode.
What?
Stage builder.
Oh my god!
Masterpieces, letting you demo some original Nintendo classics to experience the character's origins, like in Brawl.
Ugh.
The new Special Orders mode.
I don't even care what that is anymore.
Oh, and you can play with up to 8 players at once.
Ah, finally a useless feature.
What do you mean? That's pretty cool.
As if you'll ever get all 8 people in the world who bought a Wii U to play Smash at the same time.
Well, you got me there. These HD graphics are looking clean!
Whereas the 3DS looks like compressed footage from unregistered Hypercam 2.
But hey, there's all those new characters!
Oh lord, this roster. Here's how I feel about all of them.
Newcomers.
I thought Smash was all about that playground who would win in a fight argument, not, hey, I like this game, can I be in your guys' game too?
Ugh, just disappointing.
Yes, now that's what I like to see. Popular characters with viable fighting movesets that everybody stopped caring about decades ago. Now this is when I checked out. Not only is there an enormous surplus of cool potential for characters in Nintendo's library, this dumb joke barely justified an assist trophy, much less an entire character slot, especially considering there are still cut characters in this game. I love Galaxy and all, but this character's inclusion just hit me with a big Why? The only assist trophy to make full playable status. Bummer he's so bad he was better off sticking to the Brooklyn ring. Sakurai got incredibly lucky guessing that Greninja would be the fan favorite starter evolution for Smash. However, I still hate that we're getting obligatory Pokemon each game and not even ones that define the generations in any way. Considering I had only played the original and ignored Uprising at the time, this inclusion struck me as utterly pointless, adding a pole dancing goddess for all the horny fan artists. Yes, Mrs. Pac-Man was one of my favorite arcade games. Wait, what do you mean Namco doesn't have the rights to a bow? I played Awakening, and even I could hear the enormous fan outcry for Chrom in Smash, and not this dork. For once, I agreed with the Fire Emblem community. Robin shouldn't be here. When this game was announced, I wanted 3 characters more than anyone else. Ridley, Travis Touchdown, and Shulk. And somehow, the least likely of those 3 was the one who made the cut. Bummer I utterly suck as Shulk in game. Proof there were better Mario reps to add than Rosalina, and yet here they both are anyway. The Koopaling costumes are a nice touch though. Okay, let's be real here. Lucina isn't a color swap of Marth. Why? I could say the same for Dark Pit, but he literally is a color palette swap for Pit. And get this, Dark Pit has a Pit color swap too. Kim and I enjoyed many Dark Pit versus Pit Dark Pit fights. It was so unbelievably confusing and dumb. I hate this character. When you feel the need to beat up your friends and family, now you can without any consequences. Their costumes also make a really creative way to cheaply include dozens of other cooler characters of the game, considering the main roster kind of sucks this time. I was so furious when I heard that the Duck Hunt dog was a Smash character. I loved the NES Zapper game, don't get me wrong, but it was because of how dumb and backwards that was, being the dog, that I hated the idea. Then I realized you're playing as the Zapper Gun, aiming at the dog with attacks that reference the other Zapper Gun games, and I pulled a 180 and suddenly love this little pooch. I can't believe this is even a segment. Split characters! A much needed split. Now you don't have to use a freaking Final Smash just to play as Zero Suit. Though the stupid light up heels are tacky, she sure as heck is a lot more competent in fighting with them, so I'll give it a pass. Zelda and Sheik also got the split treatment, though it was likely just due to the 3DS being as computationally powerful as a waffle iron. Their new down specials are both kinda weird and underwhelming. Pokemon Trainer also got, wait, where's Squirtle and Ivysaur? Oh come on, that was what made the character so cool! If you can't swap Pokemon, you just destroyed the entire point of the character. And for what? We cut Squirtle and Ivysaur entirely? Speaking of which, omissions. I'm not surprised Snake's out, but it's still dishearteningly sad to see one of gaming's legends leave for no good reason other than the fact that he's basically owned by video games Mark Zuckerberg of out-of-touch companies. Hold the freaking phone, you uncultured twats. You're keeping freaking Falco and cutting Wolf? This bass-ackwards decision-making is baffling. How about we cut Bowser next game and keep Rosalina instead? One-hit wonder Pichu is still AWOL. Poor little mousy. Yeah, I'm also not surprised this Melee Rockstar is missing as well, but Dr. freaking Mario is back? Seriously, what the flibberty jibbity crack were they smoking? I will never forgive you for this! Well, this is new. DLC! Holding my favorite Melee edition hostage unless I bought both versions of this game was the final straw in making me skip this generation altogether. No joke. Good thing I didn't find out until after giving up on the game that they even went so far as to charge extra money for fans to buy back some of the cut characters from past games like Lucas and Roy, which I have to say was also an infuriating way to market this already lacking Smash entry. Luckily, the DLC wasn't complete crap, as Capcom dropped Ryu into the party, which I mean, we all should have seen coming with Mega Man and all, but hey, he's cool, especially with those faithful input commands. Oh my god, I remember when this happened. My friends and I at the time were frantically spending the next 30 minutes trying to debunk the announcement as if we were fully confident it was fake, but lo and behold, completely shattering logic, Cloud Strife was added to Smash Bros. This inclusion alone was so amazing it nearly justified the entire game in my eyes. And then we got more Fire Emblem and the world went back to normal. But the final announcement was another crazy bombshell that also served as the game's Melee Fox or Brawl's Meta Knight and being busted beyond all reason and fully justifying Travis Touchdown in my head for being in the game, who still isn't, by the way. Well, that was interesting. Watching these character announcements was like tumbling down a mountain for miles before suddenly landing perfectly in a nice, cozy hot tub. Has anyone ever told you your analogies are as confusing as an albino naked lobster hula dancing in the sky while juggling lemonade squeezed from an orangutan's furry nipple? Yes! No, I've never heard that. Nope, zilch. Though each game has some exclusive tracks, the Wii U soundtrack is much bigger and better. But as a whole, it totally boops. Did you mean bops? No, I'm pretty sure I read that correctly online, and they definitely said boobs.
What else has the internet taught you?
Oh, get this! Everyone's doing this weird thing now where they communicate emotions by expressing themselves through redundant punctuations, semicolon parentheses. Actually, it doesn't really seem to work when I say it out loud like that.
Well, doesn't that just boop capital X period lowercase x?
I don't think you used that correctly, colon open parentheses.
Minus tilde minus.
These games aren't bad, but they're the worst pair of Smash games purely due to each of their consoles holding each of them back.
Ultimate exists. Don't play these.
The DLC is arguably the best part of the games, and they'll soon be inaccessible once Nintendo shuts down its Wii U and 3DS servers.
Don't play these. Ultimate exists.
Let's do these one at a time, considering how these are different games and deserve different scores.
Boy, do they.
The positive gamer in me tried so hard to like Super Smash Bros. On 3DS, but couldn't get past the 3DS analog issues to rate it any higher than a wimpy 4 out of 10. I can't stress enough that not being able to dash and, well, smash is integral to a platform fighter, and doing so on this console can and will break your analog even with casual play. So just don't.
The critical gamer in me is equally troubled with Super Smash Bros. 3DS, but with a marginally better 5 out of 10.
The game is fine as software, but literally destroys its own hardware by playing it, resulting in countless ruined consoles and disappointed customers. The single game was Joy-Con drift before Joy-Con drift, and that's impressive at just how awful that is. But the positive gamer in me actually enjoyed Super Smash Bros. Wii U after giving it a fair chance, landing on a strong 8 out of 10. Though the roster was just meh, with a few exceptions, the gameplay itself was amazing. For whoever bought a Wii U.
And the critical gamer in me sees the technical success in Super Smash Bros. Wii U outweighing its faults with a 7 out of 10. Outside of a few busted characters, the game plays very smoothly and with great graphics and music, making for a strong advancement from Brawl's composite output, though all of its cut content is sorely missed. But what do you think? Let us know how your positive and critical sides rate Super Smash Bros. For 3DS and Wii U in the comments below. But if you're still playing these two when Ultimate exists, now that game totally boobs, then you're just playing with yourself. Okay, this is the season that's gonna end with the big episode 100. What have we not reviewed in all that time that we should have before we pass that threshold? Or what series could we wrap up? Everybody got a chance to request episodes, right? I mean, we did all the Patreon picks, Kim's, Zach's. Of course, we can't forget about you. Oh, what you got there? Looks like she wants to play some more Kirby. I swear this girl's won, but she gets to play the Switch more than I do. Well, of course you can! Here, I'll let Waddle Dee sit up here so he can watch. Wait, but aren't you forgetting something? What does she need? Yeah! Yeah! Her controller! Nothing gets between my girl and her Kirby! You guys have no idea how obsessed this little girl is with Kirby. Nothing captivates her more than ads or clips of this game, so I just knew we'd have to get it for her to play. Leave it to my daughter to remind me of the great game series I haven't even touched yet for reviews. Kirby and I are also the same age down to the month, ironically, so it's kind of cool to see that he's my baby girl's favorite icon. Don't you have the wrong controller? No?
Let's play!
Then how did you guys beat the... Are you ready to play some Kirby? Kirby in the Forgotten Land is actually a weird place for us to start reviewing this series, as the Pink Puffball has been strictly 2D since 1992, outside of a couple spin-off exceptions. But when we say this is the first 3D Kirby, don't think Mario Odyssey, think more Mario 3D Land, with less open and more structured linear level design, with secret doors and collectibles to discover within each zone. Now this alone is super cool for Kirby, but add in hidden Waddle Dees to rescue and tons of collectible minifigures to add, and each level becomes a sequence sorts of puzzles to solve as you explore. The more Waddle Dees you save, the more shops and events you unlock as they all move into and establish their own Waddle Dee town, and it's adorable. You can even wave hi to all of them, and they will wave hi back, and it's something that I just have to do every single time. Having something to work towards adds a tremendous amount to the game, on top of the actual Waddle Dee hunt acting like Odyssey's moons within levels. That and the fact that you can also find manuscripts to take to the Waddle Smithy to level up your copy abilities for the first time ever. This is huge and extremely addicting as you unlock these abilities by managing your resources like star coins and crystal stars earned from short challenges that test and explore the capabilities of each of your copy abilities, as well as Kirby's new alternate forms via mouthful mode. Because Kirby is best boy, he tries his hardest to inhale things several times his own size and ends up wrapping his entire stretchy body around the object like a car or a vending machine, and somehow consciously controls it by his will alone. Mouthful mode is more like Mario Odyssey's capture mechanic and less like your Pornhub search history. Now that was some low-hanging fruit. Other than all the revolutionary changes for the better, this really is a traditional Kirby with generally linear open levels with bosses and challenges closing out each world. It's even got that frustrating two-player catch-up thing where it continuously teleports the second player near the first every time they so much as think about tugging on their invisible dog leash. We never had any issues. Yeah, that's still confusing. I'm gonna hand this one over to my lovely assistant.
Why thanks?
Not you, dummy.
Hey, Clover, what do you think about Kirby's graphics?
Yeah.
Is he playing with you? No, come back? Okay.
Say no more, I'm sold. Considering Kirby stories basically equate to somebody stealing Kirby's snacks, so he sets off on an adventure with some small adorable companion that will ultimately betray him in yet another intergalactic eldritch apocalyptical catastrophe, I think we could just let Clover explain. Actually, it's not so simple this time. Doubt. This time Kirby, along with most of Planet Popstar, gets sucked into a mysterious portal to a strange new world resembling an overgrown post-apocalyptic Earth, now populated by Kirby enemies. Wow, so no stolen cake or cute backstabbing companion? That cotton candy chinchilla is gonna try and kill us later, isn't it? Without spoiling anything, the ending is actually really freaking incredible, going to Bayonetta levels of absurdity and intensity, and it's still surprisingly deep lore-wise. There's also a post-game series of levels culminating in a secret final boss that fans of the series will definitely find to be a shockingly worthwhile event. Yeah, things like vocals and lore seem amazing for Kirby games considering all we've had before amalgamated to a stolen cupcake. This soundtrack does that Super Mario World thing where one main theme lends its bass melody to the rest of the game for inspiration, and it's outstanding. We already mentioned vocals being shocking and cool for Kirby, but there's another instance later in the game that we don't want to spoil, and it's absolutely bonkers! As in, crazy, not the purple hammer monkey. Even during quiet bits, you can listen closely to hear faint music or birds singing the main theme. It's an impressive dedication that gets pulled off to great success, just like Super Mario World. Yeah, you mentioned that. Super Mario World is the pinnacle of harmony in gaming soundtracks. Fight me! This is easily the best Kirby game, and trust me, I've played an unhealthy amount of Kirby games. She loves this game. Actually, there's a ton of Kirby games, and I've played like half. Is that still unhealthy? And I love this game! Seriously, when does that ever happen? The positive gamer in me had a wonderful time with Kirby and the Forgotten Land, giving it a sweet 9 out of 10. The gameplay, music, graphics, and even story were all a joy to experience. Unless you're a maniac and didn't swap the default controls from jump with B and inhale with Y at the very first opportunity. The critical gamer in me found Kirby and the Forgotten Land to hold up under closer inspection, achieving an inflated 10 out of 10. Honestly, this game is really solid, but it's also pretty short. Though it's pleasantly polished and a satisfying improvement for the series, the only thing I was left wanting from it was more. But what did you think? Tell us how your positive and critical sides rate Kirby and the Forgotten Land in the comments below.
But if you're willing to say that this little girl's opinion is wrong... No, that's not quite the line. We practiced this. Then you're just playing with yourself.
Good job! That's not right. That's not right. You wanted to play Pokemon, huh? Oh, come on, when are you gonna do Dark Souls? Can you do that on your channel? One of the best games ever. How have you not even played any Monster Hunter games? So we should definitely check out that. You should really be playing Dark Souls. Not played Dark Souls. Like, are you gonna play before you suck it up and play? I like my Dark Souls with extra pain. You don't know what you're missing. Could you play Dark Souls next? I really want to see you miserable.
Okay, fine! I'll play Dark Souls! Who are you talking to? How did it take me until 2022 to finally get around to playing Dark Souls? Now I can really feel this game's inspiration affecting so many others I've played, like Code Vein, Hollow Knight, and Blasphemous. Well, you can't exactly call Dark Souls a Souls-like, so what is Dark Souls? A Metroidvania. What? Yeah, it's a textbook open-world lock-and-key Metroidvania, but modern-day uneducated dweebs instead use Souls-like to mean brutally difficult. Well, we can't just have a game's name as a genre that actually means another game's name as a genre. Difficulty is not a genre! Dark Souls is a dark fantasy 3D open world game where you venture through an ever-expanding dangerous series of environments, unlocking new interconnecting pathways and fighting challenging enemies and bosses to eventually make your way to open a secret hidden room and defeat the final boss. A Metroidvania. Well, what sets it apart from others of the genre is its unique XP system. When you defeat enemies, you're rewarded with souls for killing them, which you can spend at bonfires to level up like regular XP, or you can spend them at merchants like currency. But if you die, and believe me, you will, you'll be brought back to life at the last bonfire you rested at after losing all of your acquired and unspent souls at the place where you ate it. You'll need to safely make your way back to that dangerous location in order to retrieve your lost souls. But if you die along the way, they're gone forever. So if you're ever afraid of losing a ton of unspent souls, you can always use a limited homeward bone item to warp back to the safety of a bonfire. But keep in mind that once you rest at a bonfire, you also respawn all defeated enemies. So what the game is really all about is slowly but surely pushing onwards into mysterious and treacherous unmapped territory while constantly gauging that risk to reward decision of playing it safe and retreating or continuing onwards into the unknown. And the kicker is there is no map whatsoever, so you'll never know if pushing onwards would lead you into a deadly ambush or the warm embrace of one of the game's few and far between bonfires to rest at. You can try to go by online fan-made maps, but the massive interlinking 3D environment just doesn't translate well to 2D at all. And I'm kind of glad because this only adds to the fear, mystery, and immersion of the game. Though the massive world is dangerous and full of traps, it's also loaded with tools and treasures to aid you in your survival, like various upgradable armor and medieval dark fantasy weapons, as well as rings to offer unique buffs, merchants, weaponsmiths, and even summonable NPCs to aid you in difficult boss encounters. But you can't just go equipping all your strongest stuff and expect to be safe, as you'll quickly discover the game's stamina and equipment load systems. You can only move as fast as your muscles can physically carry you, so equipping too many heavy items can cause you to run and dodge like a drunk slug in peanut butter. But too many lightweight items will almost assuredly provide the defense of one-ply office toilet paper, so you've got to find your balance. So if you find an amazing armor set that makes you feel extra tanky, be prepared to put down your heavy sword and shield to compensate for all that weight, maybe taking up a bow or a rapier instead. It's either that or you've got to raise your max equipment load and level up your endurance. When you spend your souls to level up at a bonfire, you select which of your base stats to increase, which results in raising several others related to that stat. Aside from the obvious benefit of simply having high stats, some weapons will actually have stat minimum requirements in order to even wield them properly. So you can't just raise your vitality and endurance and expect to wield that Black Knight halberd or Dragon's Tooth you found without first investing in strength. The game doesn't exactly tell you that though, leaving it up to surprise for the player to discover and investigate on their own. Through trial and error, I learned that having more than half of your max equipment load makes you that super slow, heavy class, so avoid that at all. all costs. Another big mechanic the game coyly hands you without proper explanation is humanity, which is a physical item you'll accumulate on your quest and spend in order to reverse your undead hollowing and become a human again. Though you can easily play the entire game hollow, being a human actually does a lot of things. Based on how much humanity you have, you will be given better item drop rates from enemies. It's also the only way to summon NPCs or even real players to assist you in boss battles. Yeah, you heard him right. There's multiplayer in this game, and for being a single-player focused game, I have to say that Dark Souls has the absolute best multiplayer integration I've ever experienced in a video game. Think of the entire game world as a single layer in a complex series of parallel dimensions inhabited by other players. As you happen to pass each other on your journeys, you'll see each other in the form of ghosts in real time momentarily as they go about their business. You can even interact with these other worlds by inscribing messages on the ground anywhere, warning them of impending danger, or cluing them into hidden secrets or treasure, or straight up lying to them. It's due to this collective strangers helping strangers mechanic that'll keep you better immersed and away from walkthroughs. We also mentioned that if you're human, you can summon ready players into your own game world to help you defeat bosses, or elect to be summonable yourself to pass the torch on to others. However, if you wander around as a human for too long, you'll be open to being invaded by players, or even some preset NPC characters to keep you on your toes. Luckily, my experience with the Dark Souls community was hardly trolly at all, with good advice, helpful, willing allies, and little to no deception or invaders. This hands-off world design on the part of the developers allows the community to immerse themselves intimately in the game, becoming their own hint and assistance system through cooperative support. However, every character's build and stats will be different, making every interaction unique, even in ghostly passing. When you first start the game, you'll select one of many classes like Warrior, Pyromancer, or Nudist, which all have their own starting gear and variances and stats. However, you can eventually level up any starting class into whatever you want. It's largely just determining like how you want to start your own game and not exactly how you want to get locked into later on. But the main mechanic absolutely dominating every part of this game is stamina. Your stamina meter is depleted for absolutely everything you do, like running, dodging, attacking, and blocking. Shielding even prevents your stamina from recovering as long as you're holding it. This means that when you're in a scrap with a tough enemy or a boss, you need to carefully manage when to spend that precious stamina attacking, blocking, or running away, dodging, and most of all, letting down your guard, allowing that gauge to recharge. Because without stamina, you're a sitting duck, unable to block or even escape. All this together makes Dark Souls hard. But it's only hard because these mechanics are all based on reality. Weapons and armor are heavy. You can't sprint and dodge continuously without a rest, and fire, lightning, spikes, blades, and giant freaking hammers hurt a lot. And it's because it's so hard that this game is indescribably rewarding when you finally overcome that powerful boss or long gauntlet uncovering the next precious bonfire. I can't honestly tell you how many games made me jump up and shout in celebration even half as much as this game did. Because the rest of the time I was laughing out loud at how ridiculously brutal the game design was, with cruel enemy placement, borderline unfair terrain maneuvering, and unjustifiably painful bosses. I actually laughed so hard, I nearly choked in the very beginning of the game after walking through the first corridor with tutorial messages on the ground telling me how to block and attack against passive, non-aggressive enemies. Whereupon I enter the first room and slam! A massive final boss tier demon crashes down and proceeds to impale my freshly powdered, quivering anus with its 15-ton colossal hammer. I laughed so hard, I was in tears. Like this game's a joke, right? Because it was at that moment that I knew painfully well what this game really was. It's amazing. Okay, we need to talk about how absolutely incredible this game looks. Undoubtedly, it's some top-tier PS3 graphics and design. Even though you think you've seen it all with dark fantasy, Dark Souls is so uniquely its own thing that it manages to stand out predominantly from the rest with its own creatures and expansive world designs. And the absolute coolest thing about it is the fact that there is only a loading screen when you die and warp back to the bonfire. This entire preposterously massive world doesn't even have loading zones! I never even noticed a single instance of frames dropping from this obviously taxing feat of graphical engineering either. The bosses look amazing, hitboxes feel fair, the world itself is gorgeous, and each locale has its own visual flair to help it remind you of where you are so you can find your way. One of the coolest moments in the game for me was after I had spent hours setting off from Firelink Shrine and exploring the catacombs, New Londo, and Undead Burg, leading me up to the Lofty Parish, defeating a couple bosses along the way, and stumbling upon an elevator that descended me straight down, connecting right back to Firelink Shrine. I had no idea that after all that exploring and progress that I was somehow directly above my starting point. It's like the game has you lost and afraid for so long that discovering a new route back to safety or familiarity is an overwhelmingly amazing experience, and a loading screen would have destroyed that moment. At least that was my experience playing the remastered port on Nintendo Switch, where I was stuck on the loading screen for hours like an idiot.
Dark Souls is so hard I can't beat the main menu.
Until I finally discovered that From Software swapped the A and B buttons without any notice and prevented players from remapping them to the correct layout, forcing me to manually remap them in the Switch settings just to play the game. Hey, at least we beat the menu. I probably am just an idiot. The story in Dark Souls is simultaneously subtle and deep in its storytelling and lore, as Metroidvanias tend to be. The game begins with a hollowing undead escaping from an asylum and taking on a seemingly hopeless prophesized quest from a dying inmate, claiming to have heard that one day an undead will be chosen and brought to the decadent land of Lord Dran and ring the Bell of Awakening. Though he doesn't exactly know what it means or anything, or even what it's worth, but he just thinks it's kinda neat. But simply having a goal is enough to set you off on a quest to ring that bell, dang it! Yeah, and then you immediately find out that there's actually 2 bells. Huh, a small oversight, I'm sure. And the bells are very far away from each other. Well, I mean, he was still kinda right. Which, upon being wrong, will open the gates to Sen's Fortress. Well, I don't know what that is, but it must be great after all this work! It's a funhouse of death traps, giant boulders, swinging blades, and 12-foot snake warriors guarding the entrance to the lofty palace Anor Londo. Wasn't exactly on the agenda, but it's okay. I'm sure it's all gonna be okay. And it's within Anor Londo that the chosen undead will acquire the Lord Vessel from Big Titty Lady and warp back to Firelink Shrine to begin the second half of their quest. What? Is this still about ringing a bell? Because this is starting to smell like Wild Goose to me. The story up to this point has been mostly told through atmospheric lore and absorbed from NPC characters, giving you a disturbing look at this doomed kingdom's inhabitants. But one character changes all of that quite suddenly after ringing the bells, giving you a clear objective and reason behind your quest. The giant goblin snake guy? Yes, the giant goblin snake guy. Yeah, King Seeker Frampt awakens with the sound of the bells and instructs the chosen undead to retrieve the Lord Vessel and fill it with the souls of the most powerful lords of the land and offer them up as a sacrifice in order to enter the sealed throne room of Gwyn, Lord of Cinder, and dethrone him. After finally slaying Lord Gwyn, the chosen undead lights the final bonfire and connects the flames across the land. However, long story short, this merely is delaying the inevitable, as one day there will still be an end to the Age of Fire. Especially curious players, however, might end up stumbling across another world serpent named Darkstalker Koth. Though his aim is similar to Frampt's, tempting the chosen undead to also gather the Lord's souls and light the Lord Vessel to find and defeat Lord Gwyn, Koth divulges secret information he describes as the truth that Frampt neglected to tell you, making following his path instead of Frampt's morally ambiguous. Koth instead wishes for you to slay Gwyn and extinguish the fire, bringing about a new age of dark and take up the moniker as the Dark Lord. He tells you that this is your destiny, as you are actually the descendant of an ancient being that once held the powerful Dark Soul and is awaiting the end of the Age of Fire, which is something that Gwyn greatly fears. So do you like bad ending A or bad ending B? Because honestly, I can't decide between pointlessly delaying the inevitable or snuffing out all fire in the land and ruling as the fourth Lord of Darkness. But honestly, forget all of that. Sure, that's what happens, but the story is so much more than that. It's about being on a journey with a doomed quest and having nothing keeping you going but your own determination. And along this journey, you'll meet and interact with this land's few surviving characters, with whom you can help out and save or kill on the spot, or watch them slowly descend into depression and madness. One guy straight up got so frustrated with me always talking and asking him questions that he later ambushed me and tried to kill me. Now that I can relate to. Is there what? Most of this game is actually quiet, with only the sounds of your footsteps and unironically sexualized groans of pain keeping you company. That is until you encounter a boss and everything goes from 0 to 100 in a heartbeat. The fact that there's no music, but instead atmospheric sound effects for most of the game makes the sheer impact of the boss music all the more extreme. That on top of the fact that the music itself is absolutely magnificent. However, my favorite musical inclusion to the game is when a player rings one of their 2 bells. Not only is that well-earned, glorious gong resonating through their game world, but it also echoes across all other games at that exact moment. So whenever you're in the thick of things and feeling overwhelmed or weak, and you hear that bell, it fills you with encouragement and newfound strength to persevere until you can ring that mighty bell yourself. And if they could do it, then so can you. You go, man! You did it! And I'm gonna be next! I thought for sure your favorite part would have been the sexy groans you make when you take damage. Honestly, what's that about? Even the Chosen Undead loves this game so much he can't contain himself. So many games these days try their best to copy Dark Souls' homework and replicate the experience themselves. And I've played my fair share, but none of them hold a candle to the original. Had anybody honestly just told me that Dark Souls was a Metroidvania, I'd have signed up a decade ago. The best part about jumping into this franchise so late is that there's so much more I want to play now! Elden Ring and Bloodborne and Demon Souls, not to mention Dark Souls 2 and 3. There's that, but there's also this New Game Plus thing tempting me to play it all over again, like, The positive gamer in me went from an ignorant moron to a full-blown fan after playing Dark Souls, giving it a powerful 10 out of 10! No other game I've ever played felt like a true test from the developers to the gamers, but the beauty in Dark Souls is in accepting that challenge, never giving up, and holding firm to finally come out on top. It's truly an indescribable experience that everyone should try at some point. The critical gamer in me didn't think twice in kindling Dark Souls with a well-deserved 10 out of 10! This game deserves every single word of praise it has ever gotten and more, where my only misgiving with the game being that I didn't play it sooner. This game was so undeniably radiant. If only I could become so grossly incandescent. But what do you think? Tell us how your positive and critical sides rate Dark Souls in the comments below. Dark Souls is easily one of the best and most important video games ever made. And if you're avoiding it just because of its reputation and difficulty, then you're just playing with yourself. Hamster, what are we playing this week? Well, I was looking forward to playing Scarlet Nexus, but after a sneeze of bland gameplay sprinkled between an hour of mind-numbingly boring anime banter bullcrap, I'm up for literally anything else. That bad, huh? It's not bad, it's just so overdone and soulless. With what little combat I did play, it just felt lifeless after coming right after Dark Souls, and the horrendous storytelling was so painful to sit through with Bayonetta still-frame animation cutscenes and copy-paste generic anime stereotypical archetypes ripped right out of Japan's Rolodex of go-to plot fillers. I don't think your audience even knows what a Rolodex is. The game was so anime, I felt like I was being waterboarded in ramen and cooked in a Pocky rotisserie. Hey, at least you got it on a Humble Bundle deal for charity, so it wasn't a total wash. I'm so sick of the gaming industry's bombardment of ambitionless action-adventure games. I say we instead go back and play the game that started it all for some enlightenment on the elegance of genre-defining quality. Wait, go back? How far back? We're finally gonna go back and review Zelda 1. Hold up. Zelda started all of this? The Legend of Zelda for the NES is one of the most influential video games ever made. Of course. Ugh. Leave it to this guy to drop a brand new game for a 35-year-old one he's played a dozen times already. Shut up and get off my lawn! I first played this game on the GameCube's promo disc with a ported collection of Zelda 1, 2, Ocarina of Time, and Majora's Mask. Though I loved Zelda, I gave the game to a friend in high school and regretted it every single day for the rest of my life. Yeah, for once it wasn't my parents taking or giving away or selling my things without my permission. It was my own dumb fault. So anyway, I was fresh off Link to the Past and thirsty for more, and with 4 games bundled on that disc, the original Zelda 1 was the closest to the gameplay that I was familiar with, so it really grabbed me regardless of its age. Aside from the fact that those games were special to me, that disc now goes for hundreds of dollars. Enough about the stupid disc, you can play all of those games elsewhere anyway. I am such an idiot. Anyway, Zelda 1. The Legend of Zelda is an open-world action-adventure game where you'll go through challenging dungeons, solve puzzles, and fight all sorts of enemies and bosses with a wide assortment of weapons found along the way. Remember that this is still the NES we're talking about here, though even this game is technically a port of the Japanese exclusive Famicom Disk System release. But both versions sported an amazing new feature that would permanently set a new standard in gaming, as well as change the way nearly all video games were designed from that point on.
They made it gold.
No, you idiot! The gold was meant to indicate its revolutionary
Quality?
battery! What's so great about a lousy battery? As in a built-in battery, allowing for the cartridge to save player data in up to 3 files for the first time ever.
I take it back, batteries for the win.
Knowing players could now save their progress, the game was designed to be far more open and allowed players to explore and discover secrets and complete dungeons in almost any order they wanted. You start the game with absolutely nothing and will certainly meet your imminent doom unless you first investigate a nearby cave where an old man gifts you with a sword in one of the most memeable lines in video game history. From there, you're basically set loose and you're free to explore in whatever direction you want. But to beat the game, you'll need to eventually find and clear the 9 dungeons and defeat Ganon. How you do that and go about everything is entirely up to you. I've even seen people play the entire game swordless until they are required to use it to slay Ganon at the end. When you uncover a dungeon, it'll say what level it is, so you can gauge whether to take it on now or come back later when you're better equipped. And once you do beat the game, you can play it all again with a second quest, changing up all of the puzzles and dungeon locations for an extra challenge. This game is loaded with secrets and was deliberately designed for players to experiment and share their findings with their friends, like which walls to bomb or which bushes to burn to uncover hidden caves and goodies. But 36 years later, ain't nobody got time for that, so just use a map online. Now come on, that destroys the mystery and shared discovery that the game was going for. Unless you like randomly bombing every single tile, pushing every block, and burning every bush, then the only friend you'll ever need is the internet. Just like in real life. This game looks like it's from the 80s. But dude, this was the first ever savable home console video game with a huge overworld map and tons of caves and dungeons and mazes all packed into a measly 128 kilobytes. That's like 30 times smaller than a single 3-minute song file. Still kind of looks like poo. You don't even swing your sword, you just kind of gently poke it forward with the aggressive indifference of a postman stuffing junk mail in an inbox. This game is so big and masterfully designed for its archaic hardware that all of its dungeons actually interlink like puzzle pieces to save on file space and compression, even though one of them is a literal swastika. Just pay that no mind. It's really annoying that you can't move diagonally, but you aren't restricted to tile by tile movement, making tight maneuvering really irritating as you get blocked all the time when a stray pixel from a rock stubs your toe. It looks phenomenal. If it's all top down, then why do we see Link from the side? Go easy on Grandpa, he's trying his best. Little green elf boy suddenly appears in the middle of nowhere. Read the manual. Fine. So Link, named after the physical link between the player and the game world, sets off on an adventure across the kingdom of Hyrule to collect the 8 pieces of the Triforce, defeat the usurping evil Pig King Ganon, and rescue the Princess Zelda. There, now was that so hard? But why name him Link? Was it a bad translation, or do they seriously not know the word Avatar? It's a placeholder name that stuck, just roll with it. And why exactly are there 8 pieces of the Triforce? Oh, well, that's specifically the Triforce of Wisdom that Impa split into 8 fragments once Ganon invaded Hyrule. She's the one who then hides them in each of the dungeons and is instructed by Zelda to find a hero who is brave enough to challenge the dungeons and reassemble the Triforce? Why? What's the point of that? Smashing the Triforce and hiding the pieces only to make someone else come along and gather them up accomplishes nothing, while the big bad Bacon Man sits in the throne room. To be fair, Ganon did steal the Triforce of Power, which he later drops in a gory puddle of blood and sinew after you brutally murder him. Gotta love the pre-ESRB world. Hold on, so Ganon has the Triforce of Power, Link's gathering the 8 shattered pieces of Zelda's Triforce of Wisdom. Where's the Triforce of Courage? Huh? It's called a Triforce. Where's the third one? There is no third Triforce in this game. What do you mean there's no third Triforce? Are you assuming its quantity based on its prefix? Yes? Prejudiced bigot. I'm a singular he, him, by the way. Yeah, the beard kind of gave that away. And from where I'm sitting, you're looking pretty plural to me. I really love the main theme, and it sounds especially great on the superior Famicom Disk System hardware, and all around, it's pretty good. Pretty good? This is Koji Kondo!
Koji Corn Dog?
Who's Koji Kondo? I don't know, maybe the guy who made this? Oh, and this. And this. And a few other random no-name games like this. And 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 this. Oh yeah, that's it. No, just kidding. And this. And this. And this. And this. Okay, I get it! This single man is the Mario, Star Fox, and Zelda composer who literally defined all of his games with incredible iconic masterpieces that became memorable staples for decades. We're still talking about the bippity-boop NES, right? Composing music and sound effects, much less legendary, iconic tracks no less, with only 5 sound channels on the NES is true genius. The pose voice enemy doesn't die to noise like it does on the Famicom Disk System because the NES doesn't have a built-in microphone. Appreciate the art! After releasing this hot pile of garbage, the Zelda team decided to go back to basics and reimagine the original game in modern day, resulting in this gem. Honestly, Breath of the Wild would have been even better if it took even more inspiration from the original. However, I'm still thrilled with the attempt regardless. Ironically, this game made for the pre-internet 80s with its cutting-edge internal battery save feature holds up pretty well today with online maps, guides, and a save state function. Okay, fine. I don't care if you appreciate all the geeky stuff that I do, just play it! Well, the positive gamer in me actually enjoyed the original Legend of Zelda enough to reconstruct a mighty 8 out of 10. If you're up for giving some retro games a whirl, this NES classic is an outstanding way to dive into the past and have a great time with a map. The critical gamer in me had his heart struck with a silver arrow, awarding the NES Legend of Zelda a golden 10 out of 10. It's fitting that the cartridge is gold plating, signifying its new battery feature, would ironically come to symbolize the sheer reverence the entire world of gaming owes the single block of ingenious code. But what do you think? Let us know how your positive and critical sides rate The Legend of Zelda in the comments below. How did it take me so long to review the original Legend of Zelda game? It's outstanding, and might as well be made of solid gold. And if you don't think it deserves it, then you're just playing with yourself. Or Scarlet Nexus, which I'm still not sure if I'm gonna go back and play because, oh my god, that was seriously like banging my eyes. Picture this. It's early 2010 and I'm online browsing for new games coming out for the Nintendo Wii. And okay, come on, work with me here. You were in high school at the time. You didn't have a smartphone. Yeah, now that's more like it. So anyway, I recognized the name of a new epic Capcom game about hunting giant monsters and decided to check it out. What, you think you're gonna watch a video on that Nokia brick? Use a computer. Anyway, what I found wasn't some flashy cinematic trailer or anything. No, what I watched was a full hunt from start to finish with no commentary. A single hunter, armed with a huge sword and raggedy duds, runs off into the colorful world where strange creatures graze in pastures and fly through the sky. Instead of music, we only hear the sound of the ecosystem breathing in and out in suspense until a massive crocodilian sea monster suddenly appears and the music just booms into this incredible dynamic heart-pounding blast, matching the powerful back and forth of this massive sea titan and the small hunter just trading blows with each other. I suddenly realized this video is a whopping 30 minutes long. So, I kind of skim ahead in just amazement of how raw and accurately this game is capturing time. This ferocity of a wild beast defending its territory against an early cave human, hell-bent on driving it away. The monster retreats into the sea, but the tenacious hunter dives in after it anyway. He drives the beast deep underwater and back into its hidden subterranean cave for a final battle. Both sides are on their last legs, desperate to survive, and BAM! With a mighty final blow, the beast lets out one final bellow and collapses, allowing that hunter to finally start carving off some valuable prizes of hides and claws to forge new gear and prove his valor. No marketing, no trailer, no nonsense. That is what sold me on Monster Hunter. Yeah! Bummer I just barely missed out on this really cool pre-order bonuses like a Lagiacrus fossil figure. No! We kinda just covered this, didn't we? We is exactly what we didn't cover. This took some getting used to. Okay, hold up. We're reviewing the massive high-end G-Rank expansion to the Wii game ported to 3DS, Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. The closest thing to normal controls of this poor series ever got up until then. We went from analog flicking to carpal tunneling to Wii whacking. Sounds a lot like— Don't finish that sentence. Alright, you should know the gist by now. Hunt monsters to craft gear to hunt more monsters. Boom, done. Until you unlock high rank and on, where you just hunt the same recycled monsters again and again for dozens of hours after the credits have already rolled, slowly getting drip-fed new content, reinforcing the drive to keep going and forget all about how much you just got shafted out of actual post-game content. Yeah, it never made sense to me that some identical monsters we already fought might be high or G rank, basically making them visually identical but substantially stronger than the rest of their kind. It's immersion-breaking video gamey balancing at best, and lazy recycled content the rest of the time. But at least a good amount of those clones had different elements or ailment attacks to set them apart. So about that Wii. Honestly, I don't dislike the controls. Sure, there was a learning curve, especially while underwater, but the dynamic big screen gameplay sold the effect so well it didn't ever faze me that I was playing with a corn dog. Greatsword and Switch Axe, one of the new weapons, actually felt really heavy with motion control attacks. Granted, I was coming right off of No More Heroes, so this was incredibly tame by comparison. Being Monster Hunter 3, most everything was brought back and improved from 1 and 2. Plus, we got a lot of new stuff like the Argosy, a traveling trader ship that lets you barter for goods like souvenirs you could display in your house. You could also venture out into the local hunting grounds for fun and not just for a quest. Scouters would even give you forecasts warning you of rare ores, migrating fish, or particularly powerful beasts passing through the area, making it an incredibly rewarding and less stressful way to play. You can also enslave up to 3 Palico companions and force them into indefinite indentured servitude, farming goodies like herbs and honey to keep you well stocked for the hunts ahead. You can even rename the cat slaves to further rob them of their identity by using a preset list of names to choose from, and fans of my monster hunting exploits will certainly recognize the name that I gave all 3 of my feline forced laborers: Pepe. And for those of you not familiar, what's stopping you? Kim and I even did a co-op series showcasing all of the exclusive monsters that you should totally go watch, shameless plug. Shut up, Pepe, get back to work! Wait, what was that you just said about exclusive monsters? Not enough! Here's how I feel about all of them. Small monsters. Ludicrously sized insects whose absurd exoskeleton size is the least of your concerns. These little instigators spit defense down acid if you have the audacity of existing near their colonies. But not the giant trampling monsters. They're cool. You gotta die. Anesthesia spitting date rapist raptors. Totally not a Vespoid, but just as tenacious. Basically sand dolphins. And not the cute ocean kind, I'm talking the ugly river dolphins with teeth like a vampire crack addict. Non-violent Lapras-like creatures. Whenever I kill one, I feel the crushing guilt of putting a baby giraffe in a guillotine. It's awful and sad, but also morbidly hilarious. Behold the most creative and powerful monster in the franchise. Fish. You can't kill fish by any means unless you impale it with a harpoon, which breaks upon use. Fear fish! Skittish dodo poop chickens. Newly hatched blood-sucking leech babies. Velociprey, but with more realistic prehistoric anatomy. And the females are basically that, but with more chunk. Dangerously sized water lizards hunting in packs like wolves. Yikes! Defensive lineman Bullfango gunning straight towards you no matter the circumstance to increase his stats with the sacks. Walking meals that probably taste like a wet tire. Rock-burrowing lavagators. It's time to move when you upset the rock-burrowing lavagators. Iaprey, but a little more Jurassic and fantastically designed.
they still suck. Large monsters. Remember the lava gators? Well, this one's the size of a house. And it turns out they'll follow you to the ends of the earth, even conquering water and ice blight. Kiss your stamina goodbye and prepare for a bad time. Big cuddly boy who doesn't want to eat you, just that honey you're pocketing for mega potion crafting. One fast, mean, flying saber-toothed tiger, who can barf ice tornadoes, by the way, and apparently migrates to the other kind of desert, barfing real tornadoes. Bulldozer Shovelface, whose special ability is completely submerging himself in knee-high mud. And now he wants to build a snowman from your corpse. Flu-ridden Captain Boom Boom Boogerfist, whose obnoxiously dim-witted anti-vax mentality is ready to take you down with him. Josephine the Pickle T-Rex with teeth growing out of her teeth and it got angrier. No kidding, these two's tenacity for spontaneous invasion and terrifying game-changing ruthless battle styles and music just cements them as my favorite monsters in the series. You thought you've seen it all until the literal mountainside stands up and tries to kill you. We replaced that 10-ton mace of a tail with a double-sided battle axe just for some funsies. How that doesn't one-shot kill any hunter baffles me. Speaking of double-sided, this hideous globular leech wyvern will have you all kinds of turned around as it swaps its head and tail sides, so you'll never know if you're about to get eaten or become the proud parent of a pile of baby leech eggs. Was that leech poison bothering you? Well, try paralysis as you helplessly convulse on the floor. This nightmare and its brood will drain you for all you're worth. The most amazingly terrifying angler river monster we will never see again because the devs at Capcom are cowards and won't bring back water fighting. All they did was make Velocitron more realistic, and I'm suddenly extremely intimidated by this baby's first large monster. No kidding, he really scared me the first time and even defeated me once or twice before I got the hang of the controls. Spits in your face and knocks you out to have his way with you more than the average NFL quarterback. Gotta love a nation that idolizes criminal rapists. Wait, what are we talking about again? Yeah, I know, it's a glorified reskin, but man, do I love this design with the frills and inflatable poison sack. I could totally believe this thing existing in real life. Another personal favorite design, just bordering on the line of believable and outrageous kaiju level mythological beast, with a variant that fights and nests on dry land, making him tremendously easier. And sadly, this is how all iterations of poor Loggy will be from now on, because once again, the devs are cowards. An Elder Dragon tier deep sea catastrophe so strong its only face at the very bottom of the ocean caverns. Once again, gone forever because cowards. The absolute worst abominable snow bunny on a list of one. That's right, you're so horrible, you come in last when you're the only participant, you big stupid pinball belly flopper, who's made of a sponge that's as angry as me, Royal Ludroth, and has a sick cousin who drools venomously, Purple Ludroth. Local malnourished Nargacuga passes for a new subspecies without any uniqueness whatsoever other than green! And now he's becoming so forgotten he's straight up invisible. Well, sorta, he has these glowing eye trails that are really easy to follow, but your doofus hunter can't lock onto them because they're all like, where'd that little guy go? Remember the Sarlacc pit from Star Wars? Well, this one can jump out at you and chase you down for not being a good little gummy bear and hopping right in his massive maw. One of the best ideas for an early game specimen who imitates the cries of larger monsters to attract them and flee the hunters. Why this flint-bashing bird brain hasn't reappeared lately is beyond me. Oh, so now he can make sparks with his wing talons and roar you to sleep? Hold on, you wanna run that by me again? Jay Leno with tire treads made of stone on his back so he can roll around the room like a giant wheel until he passes out, but doesn't understand why you won't film him for his Insta. And his cousin has a chin bigger than Dream and his fumes stink just as much as his fan base. See, I can be relevant! Okay, we saw how big the ants were, so how come this anteater isn't the size of Godzilla to compensate? An amazing mythical fanged beast creating his own monster class, making his fight challenging and unique until later games will milk it till the cows turn to dried Parmesan and lard. Ooh, and this one is evil with that purpley black dragonblight stuff that doesn't exactly make any sense, but we all just kind of roll with it anyway. A mighty traditional black dragon commanding power over all of the elements at once in a chaotically unstable, fearsome battle. Oh, well, except water. I mean, he doesn't really like baths. A gargantuan bearded Viking whale so huge he gets several areas created specifically for him to swim through before he even realizes that a pesky little human has been buzzing around his head. A fully grown Cedius, now fully blind from its massive horn forms, eclipsing its beady eyes. How a single human is able to swim down to these dizzying depths and fell this sea titan is beyond my understanding. Guess death by 1,000 cuts really works. Commodore Sand Whale with natural tusk spears to harpoon ships chasing after it for some cruel, ironic impalement. Oh, and since it was so big, his fight was completely predictable and scripted, so they made this insane variant to throw you off like Mario Kart Mirror Mode. Meet the one true king of sea and land. This fearsome volcano dragon storms the beach from the coast like Godzilla as flaming comets literally rain down all around you as they spew from its shoulders. Absolutely my favorite Elder Dragon ever, who we will never see again because cowards. Speaking of graphics, shouldn't we also mention the graphically superior Wii U version of the game? No, less people bought into that than Google Stadia, but at least they got their money back. Ouch, so relevant it hurts. You know how all the other Monster Hunter stories suck? Yes! They never really got it right and they still struggle to this day. Well, honestly, this might be the only time that they really nailed it. Story in a game like Monster Hunter doesn't need to be deep. It doesn't even need great characters. But what it does need is immersion and a clear directive where severe consequences are there if you fail. You begin as a hunter sent to the fearful inhabitants of Moga Village who requested help after the onset of powerful tremors rocking the very foundation of their floating oceanic home. So you work with the chief and the inhabitants of Moga Village, fulfilling local quests and ready yourself for what they believe to be the cause of these natural disasters, the newly appeared Lagiacris. You already feel the fear and uncertainty from this small fishing village, and when you finally slay the sea wyvern and the earthquakes continue, you not only share in their terror and uncertainty, but you know you're in for a truly powerful battle in order to save Moga. And that's how it ends in the base game. But in 3U, that's only the beginning of the story, which is stretched out for as long as possible. I mean, that initial low-rank arc is still there, but the rest of it all just feels hokey and tacked on to justify the piles and piles of quests they're about to throw at you. Hey, I still get to start out as the local guy scared to fight wild raptors to single-handedly felling a sea god, so I'm happy. You're just happy that instead of a feline companion, you get Cha-Cha, the charismatic and pompous shakalaka. Here, darn tootin'. Shut up, Pepe! Get back to the fields! Oh, this soundtrack is so good. I absolutely adore the Deserted Island theme in particular. It's probably my favorite track from the entire series. I'm a big fan of the monster exclusive themes like Brachydios, Zinogre, and Deviljho, where their music will actually overwrite the current one being played if they surprise you and crash the party uninvited. Even Moga Village's background music just makes me want to lay back and yeah, maybe for you, but relaxing for me is a complete waste of time. Life's too short to rest. This backlog isn't gonna play itself! Okay, honestly, if you want to dip your toe into Monster Hunter without the hundreds of hours of time investment, the Wii's Monster Hunter Tri is absolutely the best place to start with a comfortable length and well-balanced monster hunts pacing the journey to the end credits. But underwater fighting does kind of suck, as much as I want Capcom to bring it back and fix it. Oh, it's not that bad. If anything, why would you be able to fight underwater anyway? Those sea monsters should eat you alive once you decide to dive into their turf. Like all the Sony fanboys after I told them that the 3DS has vastly superior controls than the PSP ever did for Monster Hunter. The positive gamer in me had a blast with Are we reviewing these two as one? Sure, whatever. Cool, Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate with a well done 9 out of 10. Aside from a few quests here and there, this game's single and multiplayer experience still holds up well over a decade later. The critical gamer in me finds Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate to be a self-awakening that the series needed, with a 7 out of 10. And though it has some flaws, I still greatly appreciate the game for what it is, and for all of the bold experimentation it brought to the series. But what do you think? Tell us how your positive and critical sides. Rate Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate in the comments below. But I mean, come on, if you're knocking this game for its underwater combat before you even legitimately gave it a try, you're just playing with yourself. Hey Hamster, it's time for this year's Halloween episode!
Yeah, I'm so ready for this one. Me too, I can't wait to talk about Corpse Party.
What?
I hadn't even heard of it at all until I gave it a shot for Halloween, and man was I surprised.
But I thought
Corpse Party has a terrible name, but I swear it's a surprisingly well-made RPG Maker Japanese indie horror game. The storytelling, sprite artwork, music, and even Japanese voiceovers are all very well done.
I'm confused.
I gotta say, it was a really gripping story. I started it for fun just to check it out and ended up hooked until the end. And you can play it on basically everything. I ended up giving it a shot on my 3DS.
Is this technically clickbait?
What are you on about? Aren't we reviewing Luigi's Mansion?
Yeah.
Come on, then why do that to me? How else am I supposed to scare anybody on a Halloween episode about Luigi's Mansion?
I don't know, release an HD remaster of your original episode from 2008? I remember this game coming out, and ironically, it wasn't very well received, but I absolutely loved it.
What do you know, the general public can't be trusted to determine quality.
I mean, sure, it's short and kinda weird, but it's got so much character.
Yeah, you loved it so much you lost my game.
I'm sorry, I looked everywhere!
I'll never forgive you. Luigi's Mansion is a Metroidvania.
What? Okay, come on, you can't just keep saying that for everything.
It's true. Don't shoot the messenger.
Is it though?
Describe the game.
You explore a large mansion, sucking up ghosts and treasure so you can find hidden keys and tools that help you explore more of the mansion. Oh my god, you're right.
Oh, and if you're getting tired of the realization that all your favorite games are secretly Metroidvanias, let me just finish up the list.
There can't be that many.
BioShock, Dark Souls, Metal Gear Solid, most of the Resident Evil games.
Wait, which ones?
The good ones.
Wait, doesn't that mean that most Zelda games are also Metroidvanias?
The good ones.
I think I'm getting the picture here.
The lock and key system is so basic yet genius, it's critical to most successful game designs.
No, I think I just realized why I don't like the sequel as much.
So yeah, you suck up ghosts, clear rooms, defeat bosses by puzzle solving your way to figuring out how to make them let down their guard, rinse, repeat until credits.
I'm still trying to get over how the game was fun because it was actually Metroid.
Samus works in mysterious ways, my friend.
This game looks amazing. No, it's not photorealistic, and good thing it's not trying to be because it's got so much cartoony personality that border on the verge of creepy and funny.
Just like you.
I really like how you can interact with everything in the mansion. The way that dust whirls through the air and bookcases and chairs rattle when you try to suck them up, and Luigi himself just tiptoe runs through the whole place, terrified of each step as his bouncy nose sproings about. I can't really put my finger on it, but it's just all so satisfying to watch.
It's like the world is just realistic enough for your immersion, but just Mario cartoony enough to not actually frighten any kids from playing it.
Yeah, and how coins and gems and bars of gold are hidden absolutely everywhere, except there's nowhere to spend any of it.
And somehow that's the most unbelievable part of the Scooby-Doo haunted house.
Out of nowhere, Luigi wins a mansion from a contest that he didn't even enter, and decides to check it out alone in the middle of a stormy night.
Bless this gullible imbecile.
So once Luigi is attacked by the mansion's otherworldly inhabitants, he meets and teams up with Professor Egad, utilizing his Ghostbusters sucky gizmo, the Poltergust 3000, to defend himself.
Apparently Egad, I love that name, has been studying this place and recently lost his collection of ghosts he'd captured into portraits due to an attack orchestrated by King Boo. So now Luigi is sent into the mansion with the hope of recapturing all of the lost portrait ghosts, as well as ridding the mansion of its plague of boos.
You're probably wondering why Luigi would even agree to do such a thing. Well, it turns out he was supposed to meet his brother Mario at the mansion, but he never showed. With no sign of him, Luigi has no choice but to search the property for any sign of his missing brother.
It's actually really clever having the timid younger brother be the protagonist and Mario play the role of the princess in this unusual haunted house game. Unfortunately, most Mario fans looked at this launch title with disappointment coming from Mario 64, not exactly knowing what this even was.
I know it sounds stupid, but the way the game handles suspense and drama only makes it all the more thrilling when you do discover something new, or find one of Mario's lost belongings. I became so emotionally invested in this silly cartoon Italian man finding his brother that I still choke up a bit at the ending.
Whereas I was a little confused after finding Mario's glove, shoe, and hat, only to find him fully clothed later on.
Are you actually disappointed you didn't find a naked Mario?
No, I'm just saying it doesn't make any sense.
But you weren't disappointed at the end of Ghosts and Goblins when you found the princess's entire wardrobe along the way, and she still isn't stark naked in 8-bit glory at the end, so why do you care now?
Good point, let me call my psychologist.
This game is one of the best sound design styles on the GameCube. Every time I fire it up, I just gotta revel in that dark horror twangy feel of the music before starting. I really like all the different ghost cries and Egad's Banjo-Kazooie voice, even though Luigi actually speaks in plain English, calling out Mario! Okay, why am I only realizing right now how weird that is? Oh, come on, the music is really good. Don't get hung up on something as stupid as why is Luigi able to speak normally when Egad has to do Yeah, I'm gonna call that psychologist for you. I loved this game so much, I'd argue it was one of the only games I ever tried to speedrun. Nothing competitive or anything, I just wanted to see if I could beat the entire game in one sitting, mainly to prove it was possible for it to all be one night. And yes, I did it, with copious snack and potty breaks. Fun fact, Luigi's Mansion was actually released the day before the Nintendo GameCube even hit shelves. I find it so weird that you could actually buy games for a console that you couldn't even purchase. Yeah, I can only imagine what that must be like. Good thing that's all in the past, right? The positive gamer in me was shocked at how much I enjoyed this peculiar Mario spin-off, giving Luigi's Mansion a 9 out of 10. I know this is a weird game and it doesn't look like it could be all that great, but trust me, it's loads of fun with great graphics and sound and classic Metroidvania haunted house gameplay. The critical gamer in me has to be honest with Luigi's Mansion, giving it a 7 out of 10. It's like opening a $50 box of chocolates and there's only like 6 tiny truffles inside. They're freaking delicious, but man, I just wish there was more of it. But what do you think? Tell us how your positive and critical sides rate Luigi's Mansion in the comments below. But if you don't want to admit that Luigi's Mansion is a Metroidvania, then you better call your psychologist. Because you're just playing with yourself. Yep, it's me again. Nope, still making those videos. We've gotta review the last Uncharted game before we pass the big episode 100. Uncharted Lost Legacy is a thing. Oh, but it's a whole game using the 2 weakest characters as the main characters. Oh hey, Tom Holland just played Baby Drake in that recent movie. Completely flubbing the games, yeah, I know. But isn't Uncharted fun because it is a game? Yeah, that's not at all what you said before. Well, it's clear now. So did you forget to do one of those Uncharted skit things where you reenact the scene from the game this time or what? Hamster, my long-lost brother needs us to pirates. Whoa, these graphics are amazing. Whoa, it all plays so smoothly. And was that a dialogue choice just now? Whoa, we get gameplay innovations too. That's so cool. Hey, look, you can totally choose to drive that Jeep to the left or to the right. There's so much freedom this time, it's incredible! Are you ready for Uncharted for the 4th time? But it's all so refined, so polished, it plays like butter! Or so I've heard. I mean, I've not actually played butter myself, but I've heard great things. Yeah, it really plays like a high-end AAA product, refined for years, pushing out a slightly better version of what they've been milking for a decade. Sure, there's a few things that are new, like open-ended environments where you can explore and approach targets how you see fit, but it's all still super linear. Nate has this awesome new grappling tool for swinging across treacherous ravines and making all sorts of death-defying leaps of faith. It feels so good to use, it's hard to imagine Uncharted didn't have it until now. Especially with how badly the universe is out to kill this guy. He needs all the help he can get, including a magical rope that attaches to anything he points at and unties itself whenever he jumps. Gotta collect all those precariously placed coins, relics, and all that other ancient crap somehow. Yeah, I couldn't care any less about 100%ing an Uncharted game. Why not? It's like trying to 100% a DVD's bonus features after you've already watched the movie. Jokes aside, this game looks phenomenal, and I still show it off to people to showcase how far video games have come, and this game is 6 years old! Yeah, seeing flowing hair, reactive snow, and mud effects, and even Nate's open sweaty pores on his skin is cool and all, but what I really love is the meticulous attention to detail. I'm the weirdo who spends an hour rummaging through Nate's home, reading all the book spines and kitchen table notes in his house before moving on with a 5-minute scene. It's all made so lived in and real, it just oozes with personality. Alright, it's pretty and all, but you and I both know what you came for, and it was the... Alright, so this is the ending to the Uncharted story, so obviously there's gonna be some spoilers in this one.
I mean, I'm not sure why you're even here in the first place, 6.5 years after the fact, just wanting to go in blind, but whatever. The story begins with Nate, his older brother Sam, and their accomplice Rafe infiltrating a Panamanian prison in search of clues leading them toward the crooked pirate Henry Avery's lost treasure. However, Rafe does a no-no and shoots a prison guard, so the gang's gotta make a run for it, resulting in Sam being shot in the back and left behind, presumed dead, as Nate and Rafe escape. Oopsie. So jump ahead to present day, where Nate is working a dirty river salvaging job to support his wife Elena, even though he greatly misses his old life of treasure hunting and mass murder. Mostly the treasure part, but you totally do get to play a make-believe shooty-shoot tutorial in Nate's attic with a Nerf gun, so you can't convince me he also doesn't miss the murder. I'm just gonna let this happen. So anywho, after Nate and Elena do normal couple things for a while, like play Crash Bandicoot on PSX, Nate suddenly gets a surprise visitor at work, his long-thought dead brother Sam, who was eager to get back on the trail of Henry Avery's treasure to pay off an old drug lord cellmate of his responsible for springing him from the jail in the first place. Nate is enticed back into the business with Sam reigniting the trail of the treasure that Nate lost ages ago in the prison, but because drama, Nate tries to cover up this voyage from his wife Elena, which obviously is going to work perfectly well and not come back to bite him in the butt later. Regardless, the two set off on the trail to find this lost treasure, joining up with Sully to steal an ancient idol from an auction house once they realize it contains the next clue they need. However, they aren't the only ones keen on this detail, as Rafe appears at the auction house intent on bidding for the idol and hunting down the treasure himself. He's also joined by Nadine, a hired mercenary leader recruited to assist Rafe in buying his way to the treasure. I hate this character. She and Nate have an obligatory scripted action scene, but inevitably Nate and company find a map inside the idol leading them to a Scottish cathedral. And from here on, Rafe and Nadine simply play the parts of every other Uncharted villain ever in being hot pursuit on the trail, but just too dumb to find the clue for themselves, and giving you lots of people to shoot along the way. So eventually they find a hidden temple, because of course they do, with yet another ridiculously elaborate booby-trapped hint system Henry Avery used to recruit his pirates, and only tell the ones he trusted the location of his secret hideaway pirate utopia, Libertalia, revealed to be in the jungles of Madagascar. And just before they're about to set off, Elena finds Nate in this hotel and calls him out on his lie. They bicker like a married couple for a while before Nate and Sam head out to discover Libertalia anyway. Obligatory drama! So once they get there, of course they discover remnants of a massive pirate civil war with all the treasure missing. But with some basic detective work, the brothers believe it was moved to a hidden pirate manor at New Devon. However, before they can set off, they're ambushed by Rafe, who reveals that Sam's story about paying off a drug lord was a lie, and it was actually he who freed Sam with the intention of getting his help in finding the treasure, and it was Sam who backstabbed him by going with Nate instead. Dun, dun, dun. Apparently Rafe is butthurt that Nate is the one who always ends up, being the protagonist of Uncharted games and finding all of this legendary lost stuff. So he tries to shoot the man over this, and not at all because he murdered half of Nadine's goons. Sam tries to save Nate from the bullet, but Nate ends up tumbling backwards down a rocky ravine anyway. But since he is Nathan Drake, he's saved by the plot, just like when this happened in Uncharted 3. He magically gets reunited with Elena? Yep, even with absolutely no way to track Nate at all, Elena somehow appears and saves Nate from dying crumpled at the bottom of a cliff in the middle of a deserted, forgotten, uncharted island, just for some extra drama as the couple reenact their ineffective marriage counseling while overlooking some gorgeous exotic vistas. Why do I like this story? Surprise! Flashback to Nate and Sam's early days at an orphanage for a random chapter where we establish the two history dorks' backstory on obtaining their mother's journal with her notes and investigation into Libertalia by stealing it from an enormous museum-like mansion in the middle of the night. Well, they get caught, and the old bag living there calls the police and immediately croaks, flopping over on the ground like a sack of potatoes, resulting in the boys fleeing the scene and changing their names to Drake to avoid the police. As if anybody ever needed that established. Do I even like this story? So after that redundant plot filler, we resume with Nate and Elena discovering that the pirates of Libertalia fought amongst each other over their pooled treasure, culminating in Henry Avery and Captain Hook, Thomas II, whatever, poisoning all of the other founders and making off with their stolen gold. Nate meets up with Sam and chases him to a hidden cavern where they discover a giant abandoned pirate ship loaded with all of the stolen loot. Of course, this is also right when Rafe and Nadine find the ship themselves, but Nadine's suddenly like, nah man, you can take all the treasure because booby traps are stupid and gave me a boo-boo. I'm splitting ya jerks, and just pisses off, locking Nate and Rafe together in the treasure hoard as the ship begins to burn down around them. So of course it's time for a pirate sword fight to the death. Stop. Okay, I think it's cool that we get a dark-skinned woman leading a gang of mercenaries. I actually really like that. What I don't like is how Nadine's character is written so stupidly backwards that she'd come all this way, losing men left and right, all just to say, screw you guys, I'm going home, when her paycheck is literally right there in front of her, just so that the two white men can have a climactic sword fight. Nuh-uh. I ain't buying that crap for 1 second. Yeah, she should have just popped Rafe in the back the second they found the place, but logic aside, Nate obviously wins, as he always does, ironically after getting lectured by Rafe about exactly that, crushing him beneath a huge pile of gold. Nate and Sam barely escape the flaming wreckage and make it back to Elena and Sully, who was here all along, by the way. He was just kind of here for the callbacks and nothing really else this game. Making this the first time we didn't have a shocking fake death for the guy, so I guess that's something. Well, after it's all said and done, Sam and Sully join up for a new job. Nate and Elena buy the old crummy salvaging plant he works at, and nobody for once thinks of going back to New Devon to loot the now sunken ship for near limitless wealth that only they know exists. Oh, and get this, Nate and Elena just work on filling out permits to salvage in other places around the world, where there might be valuables instead. Like that's their job now. Nate seriously murdered more people than H.H. Holmes could ever dream of in foreign countries, all for a quest to discover lost pirate treasure. And when he finally does, he and his wife immediately give up, go home, just like how they bickered about not doing for the entire game up to this point. Nathan Drake is suddenly concerned about breaking the law. He won't even get a permit to loot the sunken pirate treasure he found. Nope. But instead, because movie magic, this works out just fine for the couple anyway, as they're rolling in dough enough on their exotic island home years later, where their teenage daughter discovers relics of her parents' naughty past locked up in a cupboard. Wait, what? No, like mementos from the other games and stuff. Yeah, you know, saying it all out loud like that makes the story sound really stupid. You think? But I say it goes to show how great voice and mocap actors like Nolan North and Emily Rose can elevate a piddly script into something emotional and enjoyable.
Daddy, why are you holding a shotgun in this picture?
Well, your daddy once used it to blast a couple thousand dirty foreigners' heads into puddles of Chef Boyardee.
Ew!
I know, I'm sorry, honey. Chef Boyardee's disgusting.
Sound design is the most important aspect for immersion in a video game. It has the ability to enhance an average experience and make it feel emotional and real. And hey, I can actually tell this soundtrack apart from the other 3 games. Oh, so you can tell that this time, instead of Greg Egmonson, we have Henry Jackson composing this. This one's got that whole slide whistly thing. That's not a slide whistle, dummy. This is the best Uncharted game, and I don't say that lightly. I guarantee you, I could convince my parents that these are real people and not video game characters. And that's not just because they believe everything they see or hear without validating it. It's a shame Naughty Dog spent the last few years completely remaking The Last of Us, a perfectly impressive modern game already remastered for PS4, and just let this series rot with nothing but a few pity ports. It's so sad to see such talented developers waste years of their experience on a redundant masturbatory ego inflator, regardless of how much everyone protests. Also, Neil Druckmann is a pompous butt sneeze who took over writing this game after allegedly forcing the original writer, Amy Hennig, out of the office. You mean the douchebag behind this preschool example of how to destroy and grossly misrepresent your own character's an original highly praised story at the same time? Yeah, the guy with his head so far up his own butt he doesn't need routine colonoscopies to check for cancer. You mean the guy who basically is cancer? Neil Druckmann is cancer. Now let's rate a game he wrote regardless of how I feel about that insufferable self-righteous man-child. The positive gamer in me was amazed with Uncharted 4: A Thief's End, giving it a golden 10 out of 10. This game is one of the most technically and graphically marvelous achievements in the medium, and unfortunately, it's actually a really great ending for Nathan Drake. The critical gamer in me, after much deliberation, has to give Uncharted 4: A Thief's End a 9 out of 10. Yeah, I heavily implied that last time I would be giving this a double 10, and it really is incredible, but I'm just so hung up on a few dumb story oversights that unfortunately pulled down the final product for me. It does at least tie with the quality you expect from Uncharted 2 and 3. But what do you think? Tell us how... Treasure! I don't know, positive critical mumbo jumbo. Just gonna smack the keyboard, make some numbers happen on screen, I guess, but if you... Next episode, go on, get out of here. You're just playing with yourself, yada yada yada. Now give me that box. Hamster! The Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Special Edition is finally here! It's real? Oh my god, it's been an agonizing 4 months without any news from Nintendo, much less a tracking number to even confirm that the $90 I spent on that stupid box even happened. That's on top of the fact that we previously spent months refreshing their online store page to even be able to pre-order, all before the pre-orders randomly went live for all of 2 seconds, crashing the entire Nintendo website for hours. On 3 separate occasions. I spent dozens of hours on at least 3 different devices personally refreshing and waiting hopelessly in broken online queues in order to even have the privilege of purchasing one of those stupid things before greedy scalper bots scoop them all up. Don't believe me? Just check eBay! And that's just our experience in the US. The UK store didn't even allow pre-orders until the past month. Yeah, pre-orders for a game that came out 4 months ago! And guess what happened? The site crashed. The site crashed! In seconds! Again! Why was this special edition only available on Nintendo's website? And how many site-wide crashes does it take to realize that your servers can't handle all of your customers? Every aspect of this pre-release was atrociously handled and utterly botched by Nintendo. This insulting Wario render that every single hopeful fan got instead of the pre-order page they waited hours for in an online queue is the one true Xenoblade villain, and you can't change my mind. Oh, and let's not forget that after getting the pre-order to finally go through, they ended up delaying the actual game itself, as well as the special edition stuff, for weeks after the game came out. Oh, you heard him right. Our thanks for fighting to secure pre-ordering the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Special Edition was an extra 2 weeks of waiting after release day, and then wait an extra few months for the actual Special Edition contents. All right, now that we got that out of our system, it's here! Oh, you better be good! Oh, right, the skit thing. Excuse me, is this a bad time? Monolith! I wasn't expecting you. Come on, sit down. Thank you. So after our last meeting, I decided to do some changes. Good. After making one of the best RPGs in history, that sequel you crapped out afterwards stank so hard I had to get my nose cauterized. I think you'll like what you'll see. We'll see about that. Well, it's magnificent. Monolith, I knew you could do it! Oh, it's no big deal. I just tried to work in everything you said you loved about the first game, but with loads of quality of life improvements, and basically tossing everything from 2 that you despised. Even the cover art is literally stabbing Uriah in the back with the Mikata sword! Subtleties for chumps. Oh, spark me! I don't even know where to begin! Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is absolutely everything great about the first game and more. But for the sake of time, I'm gonna assume you know and have played the first game, so let's just focus on the and more. Oh, and if you played Xenoblade Chronicles 2, first of all, I am so sorry. Secondly, you'll appreciate a landmark or 2 as well as an Easter egg here and there, but you'll mostly appreciate that 2 has basically been... The world of Xenoblade 3 is the result of the worlds of 1 and 2 colliding, more literally than metaphorically, resulting in half of your party originating from descendants of the races in colonies from 1 called Kavessis, and the other half from 2 called Agnians. Your Kavessi party members do combat and arts using the cooldown meters from 1, whereas the Agnians need to perform auto attacks to charge their arts meter, just like in their respective games. But to make things even more interesting, each member can learn and master arts utilized by the other side, allowing you to deeply customize their move pools and fighting styles. However, the best part about the combat is that all 6 of your party members will actively participate in battle. Nobody gets benched. And on top of that, you can also recruit many potential 7th party members called heroes who will also fight alongside you in combat and can be cycled in and out as you see fit. The fact that this is even possible on the Switch, with everything else going on, is mind-blowing. Okay, so 7 active party members in an open-world RPG is amazing and all, but the real best part of the combat is the class system, borrowed and revamped from the likes of Final Fantasy IV. Each character and hero in the game sports their own unique weapon class, arts, stats, and even outfit style. And through experience, your other party members fighting alongside them will slowly learn to use these classes for themselves.
This gets so obsessive and deep, where you'll spend hundreds of hours not only teaching your party member every class and leveling up those classes all to 10, but also completing character side quests to raise that level cap to 20. It's highly rewarding to experiment and try new classes all the time, and thanks to the outfit themes, it's actually quite easy to keep classes straight in your head during battle. You can also customize each character with up to 3 gems, which are much easier to manage now that each member is sharing the gem once you craft it, and they automatically use the best version once you level it up in a simple, comprehensive tree. And if you don't want to collect all the goods, you can just spend some accumulated Nopon coins just to bypass the crafting requirement altogether. You can even use those nifty Nopon coins for meals and upgrading classes faster if you want to. There's also up to 3 slots of equipment for further customization of their stats and abilities. And if you're not feeling up to organizing your whole party's arts, gems, and equipment, there's a lovely auto button. However, I personally preferred having my team maximize gems for their class and moves that can complete the break, topple, launch, smash combo. Each of your Kavesi party members can also interlink with one of your 3 Agnian members, resulting in them fusing into 3 pairs of overpowered monstrosities called Ouroboros. And even these forms can be customized in their own skill tree and vary in looks and performance based on which of the 2 interlinking members are taking the lead. Though the story will nudge you along certain paths, this colossal open world will constantly tempt you to explore off the beaten path with new colonies to liberate, secret areas, supply airdrops, side quests, hero quests, unique named monsters, fast travel landmarks to discover, the Collectopedia pages, and so much more. There is so much more to unpack there, but we just do not have the time. So just take my word that this game world will suck you in quickly with its enormously packed areas, but will hook you with its combat and class systems alongside its rewarding nature of exploration. Without spoiling anything, after you reach the end credits, you'll be given an option for New Game Plus, as well as an amazing level down feature. I know it sounds counterintuitive at first, but trust me, it's amazing. So you remember how you accrue bonus XP for finding landmarks and doing side quests and stuff like that? Well, you can spend that XP at certain campsites to level up like usual, or in post-game, choose to level down and stockpile all your earned XP so you lose nothing, but make sure that your characters are scaled properly for doing side quests and fighting unique monsters and such. This is actually outrageously helpful for accruing class points, among other things, as the game rewards them to you based on your level proportionate to the challenge. Most RPGs die down after credits, but Xenoblade 3 not only makes everything incredibly more rewarding and fun to play, but it's jam-packed with so many quests and things to do that it'll take a tremendous undertaking to complete it all. And then you can start New Game Plus. There's also no gacha or real-time waiting, did I mention that? You also didn't mention that eating meals didn't provide any of the buffs the game said it would until the first update patched it in. Oh, I wasted so many Nopon coins on a buffet of lies! Damn you, Manana! I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that this just might be the best looking game on the Nintendo Switch. Yeah. The character and creature designs, much less the gargantuan world design itself, is all magnificent. The characters are all so expressive and colorful, helping illustrate the story beats and emotion that the story demands. I'll admit, getting 3D anime style art in games is extremely hard to do correctly. But man, just look at how vibrant and alive just these characters' eyes are. I want to point out what a huge step forward the UI has taken from the last game. Everything is very clear and simple considering how much actually needs to be on screen to maintain 7 active party members and organize all those options and potentially confusing menus. Man, even the Ouroboros designs are all incredible. I also love how they're all visually reflecting the actual style of the character who's taking the lead of the interlink. How about those adorable chibi sprites from the class selection menu? I gotta get a set of pins or decals or something of the main team. They're too adorable. Shame there were no physical Nintendo rewards for this game. Missed opportunity. But hey, we are getting a Mio Figma from Good Smile, which only tells me that more are on the way if she sells, right? At first I was confused they picked Mio and not Noah for that, but then I beat Chapter 5. If you know, you know.
Here I am, staring at my...
Alright, enough farting around. It's story time, baby! All anyone has ever known in the land of Ionius is war. They are born from large test tubes as young adults, and after 10 years of service, they are sent on by their queen and released into the world's ether. That is, assuming that they can even survive 10 years of constant battle. Regardless, this event is called a homecoming, and is all everyone ever has to look forward to, and reaching that day is considered the highest honor one can achieve in their short lifetime. The two nations at war are Kevis and Agnes, spread out across the world in the form of giant mobile mech deployable colonies, all ruled by flame clocks. Colonies are instructed to take the lives of their opposing nations in order to fill their own colony's flame clocks to ensure that it doesn't run dry, meaning the demise of all of its residents. Noah, Uni, and Lance are all Kevesi soldiers who end up head-to-head with Mio, Tyon, and Senna, all Agnian soldiers, in a battle to defend their colonies from each other. Through a twist of fate, the 6 soldiers end up with the power to interlink with the opposing side, experiencing their lives and memories as if they were all their own, and temporarily fused into each other. This ability gets haphazardly forced upon the unwilling and understandably uncooperative opposing soldiers by a mysterious third-party character named Vandam. No, not the same Vandam who looks kind of similar to the one from before. He's basically Final Fantasy's Sid for Xeno games, so don't dwell on it. So Vandam was transporting this big hunk of metal and superpowers back to his native mysterious third faction of soldiers in waiting. But after being shot down and losing his entire crew, he desperately bestows this Ouroboros power on the Happenstance party, instructing them on how to find his people at the base of the Mechonis sword. And considering that the newly melded party have just become enemies of the eyes of both Kevis and Agnes, they reluctantly join together and journey across the continent to discover the truth about their world. And it's best we leave it at that to avoid spoiling too much. I'll at least leave you with my absolute highest recommendation that you play this game and experience the story for yourself. And no, you do not need to have played Xenoblade 1, 2, or even X to appreciate the narrative in full. I will say that this experience was somehow even more gripping than Xenoblade 1, and in my eyes has become the best written story in any RPG I have ever played. But if you need some more convincing than that, we'll have a minor spoiler skip for some of the die-hard fans, but I do promise I won't be discussing any of the big plot twists or the ending or anything. So it's just up to your discretion if you really want to hear any more. I do, however, want to establish a bit more on that third faction that Vandam sent the group to, as it sets the party up for the second half of the game. Upon reaching the Mechonis sword, the party discovers a colony of people living in a massive hidden city inside the sword itself. And to the great surprise of the party, these people grow old, have children, work together to survive in a world where two armies are constantly battling it out beneath them, ignorant to how the world really works. It turns out that the colonists in the city all descend from the original 7 cities' founders, who are immortalized in statue form in the city's heart, as well as in name tradition, as the 7 founders inspired 6 different democratically cooperative sub-factions. And with a quick glance at the 6 statues themselves, the 7th of which is hidden, and reading up on their plaques, players might recognize who some of these founders really were. Just to name a few, Shulk from Xenoblade 1, an aged Rex from Xenoblade 2, and even Fei Fong Wong from Xenogears on the PlayStation. Finally bringing the original game into canon for the first time since its release in 1998. Oh my god, I screamed! That's just so cool. They even got the rights to make this happen for how subtle it is. But the coolest part is now that we know that Xenogears is not only canon to the story, happening sometime in the early ages of Ionius, but it also happened alongside the Xenoblade series, or maybe more accurately, between it. You see, as the group explores the city, they come to understand the history of Ionius, namely how this entire universe came to exist when 2 neighboring dimensions, the worlds of Xenoblade 1 and 2, physically merged with each other. However, the worlds became locked together due to an interference from the villainous immortal Mobius, utilizing the constant war factories of life energy to keep them alive and to perpetuate this frozen state of time referred to as the Endless Now. You still following me here? I'm just checking in for your mental health. Yes, somehow all time has been frozen in this weird interdimensional overlap, and it's the Mobius that are exploiting the lives of everyone on Ionius in order to fuel their immortality. So screw them, right? Well, it turns out those colony flame clock thingies are how Child and Mobius are all farming life energy, so the party decides to use their combined strength to smash as many flame clocks as they can to free the enslaved colonists regardless of their allegiance, gain allies, and slowly turn the whole world against Mobius. And that's what the game itself really is. You're slowly moving up in the world by saving colonies, recruiting new allies, and defeating Mobius one by one. However, the group is also secretly aware that by destroying Mobius and stopping the Endless Now will only result in the end of the world as they know it. And it's that slow descent into inevitability that drives the group, but also slowly reveals who they all are deep down. These are some of the best written characters I've ever had the pleasure of taking on a world-changing adventure. Each one is so well thought out and developed that it's genuinely painful saying goodbye to them all at the end. Which I'm not gonna talk about. I'm not crying, you're crying. This story is absolutely beautiful. In fact, it's so spectacular, I refuse to tell you any more than that, even though I fully talked spoilers for Xenoblade 1 and 2. And don't get me wrong, this game's incredible! Not this one, but this is one of the best RPG stories ever, and I am 100% admitting right now that this one is even better. Yeah, though we said before this wasn't a real spoiler section, I can't bring myself to rob someone of one of the best stories in gaming history, spoiler skip or not. It's like ruining your first Metal Gear Solid or BioShock. If you're not sold now, then I don't know what's wrong with you. Alright, well now I'm just gonna sound like a broken record. Whatever. This is one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard. Yasunori Mitsuda returns alongside Ace and the other wonderful past composers to make one of the most outstanding collective works I've ever heard. It seriously sounds like somebody threatened them that this would be their last time composing music ever, so they went all out. Utilizing handcrafted flutes for the music direction was a brilliant idea and really personalized the role of the Offseers, sending off their fallen comrades into the ether FF10 style. That makes 3 different Final Fantasy references so far. Yes, I swear I'm gonna get around to playing and reviewing those more. Stop looking at me like that. Random side note. I made this joke tweet specifically predicting flutes for the Nintendo Direct that ended up revealing this game as its big one more thing, where flutes play a large role in the game. Now all I gotta do is delete all my other garbage tweets and I'm officially an insider. We haven't even talked about the outstanding voice cast yet. Though the battle lines can get repetitive, the customizable class and art system constantly changes their dialogue, which if anything helps the player clear up who is doing what and fulfilling what role and when. Though this is already a tremendous amount of voice lines, it comes at the expense of their lines and attitudes changing based on their affinity for each other like in 1. Kind of a missed opportunity with a party of soldiers from opposing sides learning to cooperate and rely on each other. All you need to know is that Noah thinks you're a lightsaber, Mio needs some Wuta, Yunie's the bus, Tyon thinks sometimes brute force is the answer, Lance thinks he's the MVP, and Senna is the girl with the gall. Everybody gets a rhyme time level line, and I am so glad. Also, 2's horrendous stacking sound mixing effect thing is fixed for anybody who's asking. I didn't even get around to mentioning that in my Xenoblade 2 video now that I think about it. Shut up about 2! Anyway, the vocal tracks are probably the best in the whole Xeno series. And yes, that's tracks plural. And you better not play them because I'm gonna cry. Too bad, I thought you'd want something a bit meatier. I have absolutely no idea what techno-voodoo witchcraft Monolith Soft needed to cram this colossal game onto this dinky little toenail and get it to outperform everything else on the system. This is the best RPG I have ever played. And yes, I've played Chrono Trigger, and Persona 5, and Super Mario RPG, and The Witcher 3, and Final Fantasy.
Final Fantasy?
No, Kim, not right now. We're doing Xenoblade Chronicles 3.
So is that your favorite game on the Switch, or what?
I sail peacefully, in your dreams. Everything seems calm and free. I know if we want this warmth to last forever again, let's go back to the
Yes! 10. I used my thinking muscles for this one. But what do you think? Let us know how your positive and critical sides rate Xenoblade Chronicles 3 in the comments below. But man, if this isn't the best Xenoblade, then you're just playing with yourself. Hey, Bomb, get this. Game Freak just dropped the latest Pokemon generation, and it's even buggier than the last one. That means Sword and Shield are no longer the newest Pokemon games! You mean all the whiny child apologists are 5 years older and have long moved past that rank pustulant piss balloon? Meaning we can finally fairly review it after all this time! Speak for yourself, I'm not touching that filth. I didn't even play it. But I did for the lulz, which you can watch in a full livestream series just like everybody else, shameless plug. Even still, I really don't want to do this. Well, it's episode 99 and you've been putting this off since episode 2? Fine! Hope you're ready for a bloodbath. Brace yourselves, we're finally doing this. Game Freak, prepare your anus! Alright, Mr. Plated for the lulz, is Sword and Shield really as bad as everyone says it is? No. Really? It's worse! Oh. It was the most comically unbalanced, unfinished, directionless disaster of a video game I have ever played in my life. Aren't you supposed to be the positive gamer? Yeah! It was hilarious! I can do this. You watched it all, right? Yeah. So best foot forward, this is technically an RPG journey, catching and raising new Pokemon to defeat 8 gyms and the Elite Four to become champion of the region. Best foot forward. That's the bare minimum! Yeah, I don't have a single good thing to say about the gameplay. Okay, so let's try to ignore the horrendous pre-release debacle where Game Freak repeatedly straight-faced lied to everybody about why over half of the national decks of Pokemon were cut from the game, among many other things, due to them supposedly rebuilding everything from the ground up for the Nintendo Switch. Even though they were immediately exposed and called out on their lies and ignored the tremendous fan outcry to delay the game and properly finish it, resulting in widespread boycotts and public humiliation. Because let's be honest, delaying this game wouldn't have changed a damn thing. It's barely even a game when you think about it. It plays more like a series of long unskippable cutscenes between narrow hallways you have to walk through just to activate the next cutscene. The hand-holding in this game was painful. Not only does this game forcefully demand where you go and what you do every single step of the way, as if you've never played a Pokemon game before in your life, it treats you like you've never played a video game in your life. You think we're exaggerating. But no, this game thinks you are so dumb it has to remind you every 10 steps that you're walking to the left, and then tell you again in 10 steps, and then tell you again in 5 that you're supposed to go in the red door and talk to the only person in the room and suck their 2 Pokeballs and wipe your butt with your left hand, and it's bad. Video games are founded on player choice and input. Taking that away from the player and treating them like a drooling infant can't even be considered to be on the same planet as fun. No joke, this was the vast majority of the game. And thankfully, it's much shorter than usual. Sure, I'd rather it be longer, but I'd also rather it be fun, and we can't always get what we want. Between all the narrow corridors and forced cutscenes, you'll occasionally get the chance to catch wild Pokemon and battle trainers. And this should be the fun part. It really should. But somehow even this has lost all of its color. The problem is this game is grossly unbalanced, quickly overpowering your Pokemon with mountains of forcefully shared XP, on top of the new broken XP candies. This causes virtually every single encounter to be a breeze, and not a single battle will ever put up a challenge. You can't even catch wild Pokemon that the game determines to be too high of a level for you, as if that solves anything. Yep, that just made uncatchable shinies a thing again. Thanks, Game Freak. The wild area was still a step in the right direction for the franchise, but boy is it a baby step, and boy does it have a lot of problems. So at first glance, the wild area appears to be a large open world environment for Pokemon to roam and be encountered in the overworld. However, it's a pathetically small, single environment with a seemingly endless list of graphical bugs, pop-in, unbelievably bad weather effects that instantly swap from one extreme to another if you take a single step over arbitrary invisible lines, and the new game's horrible gimmick, Dynamax battles. These are trash. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. You basically fight a random, oversized Pokemon with a team of 3 AI trainers, because the wireless sucks so hard. I never once got to interact with another human being pitiful enough to be caught playing this game at the same time as me. The big Pokemon just has a big health bar, and occasionally some annoying shields you gotta break by using super effective moves you were already using. and that's it. The whole Dynamax gimmick is just slow Pokemon battles? Did they seriously look at Niantic's Pokemon Go and think that what people liked about that game was that the boss Pokemon were big? That's about as stupid as thinking people fly in airplanes because they like peanuts. No, Game Freak, we use airplanes in spite of the peanuts. It's funny because Pokemon Go's gameplay is somehow more engaging than Sword and Shield. So you find some Chungus in a hole and get smothered in rewards like the new XP candies that can easily level up your newly hatched shiny to level 100 without it ever battling once. It's like these new gameplay implementations are there just to convince you not to play the game. There was a point where I stepped into the next hallway, or route as we used to call them, and caught some new octopus thing. I didn't once battle with it or anything, but instead immediately used it to single-handedly annihilate the upcoming gym trainers and leader without taking a single hit. That's inexcusably unbalanced. God, now I see why kids these days think that Brock and Whitney were hard gyms. They couldn't squish an ant unless they were safely driving a steamroller. The entirety of this game is fighting to get away from the game's hand-holding so you can play it, even though you're effectively handcuffed to Hop, the most obnoxiously in-your-face British stereotype I've ever had the displeasure of being handcuffed to for 15 hours. And then when you finally do get away for a minute, you realize the RPG itself is incredibly barren, with virtually no buildings or people to interact with, outside of the obligatory ones whose sole existence is to hand you some TM or held item without question. Unless you missed one of these, there's absolutely no reason to return to any of the game's towns for any reason. I remember going into the fire gym with most of my team being weak to fire just to give the game a fighting chance, but I won anyway! Seriously, the only time this game even was almost fun was when I got to the wild area, but once I realized how artificial and plastic everything was, I moved on. But much to my dismay, that was the only part of the game where you'd ever have a wild area. It's one room! I genuinely don't understand how people even have the stomach to defend this game. It's not bad because of everything Game Freak cut and lied about in development. It's bad because it's one of the most abominable disgraces ever published, held together with feces and popsicle sticks. Oh, speaking of which, did you notice the entire world freezes if you touch a ladder? Oh, and those obnoxious challenges take the place of nearly every gym again. But they're somehow even worse than last time. There, we talked about it. Can this be over now? This is only the first segment. No! Okay, so you played Sun and Moon on 3DS. Well, these games basically ported all of the models and animations from those games, and that's it. I say basically, but that's exactly what happened, even though this lying scumbag Masuda tried to play us all for fools, claiming that they were all recreated from scratch. How stupid does he think we are? That's once again just the tip of the iceberg. This game is a smorgasbord of hilariously awful graphical memes like the famous N64 tree, and constant fading to black every single time something needs to be animated on screen to avoid from actually showing it. Now, a lot of people blame this on lazy developers, and I gotta say, it's got nothing to do with their competency, but instead it has everything to do with their absurd release schedule. You think Nintendo doesn't have the money to properly make a quality Pokemon game? Now, the problem is they don't have the patience and want a new one released every year because a single delay could cost them millions in sales from the card game, anime, and merchandise that's all scheduled to release at the same time before the Christmas rush every single year. So yeah, Pokemon and people pop in and out of existence continually, animations are unbelievably stiff and unfinished, environments use temporary textures and models that seemingly never got replaced, your character emotes about as much as a vacuum cleaner, and Pokemon just transform around the screen to move, and use magical floating teeth or claws to just appear out of thin air to attack for virtually every move. How come when you're in a trainer battle, you suddenly get teleported somewhere else just so they didn't have to remodel the background? And sometimes you don't even get a background. You just get teleported into this white void box with some PNG fog floating around. Oh, and by the way, if you find a shiny Pokemon, it won't be shiny in the overworld beforehand. Oh, and by the way, only some Pokemon can even be seen in the overworld at all, so have fun resuming running in the grass like a psychotic lawnmower looking for the new trashy Pokemon. Oh yeah, these Pokemon designs are indescribably hideous. Like all of them. But you already knew that by watching our Pokemon Opinions video on Sword and Shield, didn't you, shameless plug? Some of you said that by playing the game myself, I changed my mind on the Pokemon designs. And you're right. I used to hate them all, and now I hate them! You know, it's always the story that I hope for most when playing a bad game. I already know the gameplay is gonna suck, so I tell myself I'm just playing it to experience the story, or maybe the story will hold up the whole circus tent. But holy crap, this game. This game has the worst plot, characters, writing, and delivery conceivable by man. You know you're in for a train wreck when the game starts and immediately you're met with a plastic announcer silently flapping his gums at the screen while text just silently appears under his head. So this game's beaver child, Hop, lives next door and harasses you for the entirety of the game as you both journey across the straight hallway of a region to collect 8 badges and dethrone this pompous jack-off of a brother and regional champion, Leon. You'd think with how frequently they stop you dead in your tracks to force-feed you mountains of sloppy dialogue that there'd at least be a point at the end of it all. But nah, you just take a few steps and get castrated with pointlessly crappy word balloons for the entire game. So really there's just a long list of schmucks you gotta tolerate listening to until credits roll. Like this laughably weak pipsqueak literally named Bidet. You better hop on a bidet after playing this disgraceful diarrhea. Oh, and there's this random goth chick named Marnie the Dinosaur or something, and she's got this gang of stalkers that follow her everywhere called Team Yell. Not sure why she doesn't just call the cops and report them. I mean, it'd be easy to track them all down considering every single one of them looks exactly the same. You know you're playing a quality video game when there's 2 or more side-by-side identical character models with the same looping animations, but the game tries to pass them off as different people. Oh man, and you gotta get a load of this buffoon. Just like actual British politicians, Chairman Rose here casually decides to become evil and destroy the planet for absolutely no other reason than you're getting too close to the end of the game and nothing has happened yet. Dude just straight up interrupts you at the champion battle to say, and I quote, "I think it's time I brought about the darkest day." Silently, of course. Text just kind of shows up on screen when he suddenly appears like a toenail on a cheeseburger. Which, it doesn't really happen often, but when it does, it probably really sucks. So Derp Salad here is concerned that in 1,000 years, Galar might run out of power. He's got absolutely no evidence to support this, of course, but thinks it's best to play it safe and bring about the freaking apocalypse, you know, just in case. I'm not even gonna try and justify all that, even though it perfectly reflects real-life politicians. You ever realize that Rose and Leon's beards are the opposites of one another? It's like they each intentionally shaved exactly where the other one would have facial hair. No, why would you think that? So like if they kissed, they would fit together like 2 fuzzy puzzle pieces. Oh my god, this story's so bad, it's making me fantasize about 2 cartoon men making out! Beard bros are best bros. I can't be the first person to think about this. Alright, I'm gonna be clear with you all. I tried my best to find the least crappy music to play for this episode, but that just cut all of the new stuff and only left the Game Boy remixes. So... honestly, it's not all bad, it's just kind of super samey at best and kind of ear-splitting at its worst. I don't know, I kind of think it's at its worst with the intentional lack of voice acting, with all the characters just kind of moving their puppet mouths as if something was supposed to be coming out of them. Okay, enough of the British slang. Quit throwing a wobbly, I'm just taking the piss. Okay, I swear to God, I'm not even making a script for this part here. This seriously is one of the worst games ever made. Okay, I know you're all probably morbidly curious, and so was I, but I'm gonna be honest. I will never get this time back. Just don't. So undescribably awful. Everything that the game is trying to do, it just freaking can't. It's terrible. And if you even got this far to finish the game and you think, oh, maybe if I buy the DLC it'll get better. No, it does things to you. No, it doesn't. It's more of the same crap. Just admit that you made a mistake, sell the game, and move on with your life. The positive gamer in me was actually shocked at how laughably bad Pokemon Sword and Shield really were, giving them a gutted 3 out of 10. Sure, it was funny to laugh at how atrocious and horrendous this trash heap was, but that's it. I mean, at the end of the day, this was one of the worst video games I have ever played. The critical gamer in me struggles to express my utter disdain with Pokemon Sword and Shield, giving it a morbid 1 out of 10. This hopeless shell of a game is nothing but a string of constant silent breadcrumb cutscenes scattered down a long empty hallway, and the RPG itself is without a doubt the worst I have ever played in the genre. And believe me, my expectations were already at rock bottom. Leave it to Game Freak to keep redefining how low the bar can really go. But what do you think? Tell us how your positive and critical sides rate this thing in the comments below. But if you seriously just watch this just to complain in the comments, do us both a favor and try any other RPG on the Switch just to get some perspective. Because if you are blindly defending this absolute cock-up, then you're just playing with yourself. Seriously, Xenoblade 3 is amazing. You gotta try it. It's episode 100! And it's high time for the big review you've all been waiting for. Let's close out this momentous milestone by playing Metroid. Yes! Other! No! And I'm gonna bake some cookies. Well, in that case... After 3 long years of waiting since Metroid Prime 3 showed us all what Metroid could do on the Wii, Metroid Other M could not come any faster. I was legitimately excited for this. Friends of mine in high school also shared in the excitement, huddling around library monitors and sharing headsets to watch the latest trailers. And why shouldn't we have been excited? This new game had a ton of potential, being developed by Team Ninja while still being directed, written, and produced by Yoshio Sakamoto himself. Maybe because trusting gaming's oldest and greatest female icon to the boob jiggle physics people wasn't such a good idea? Sure, they've pretty much never made a game not called Ninja Gaiden or Dead or Alive, but considering how Nintendo was so reluctant to develop their own new 2D or even 3D Metroid, then allowing a fresh set of eyes from talented outsourced developers sounded just like what the series needed for a big break. It worked with Retro Studios. Or it might just accidentally create an inexcusably unfathomable disappointment that will immediately kill any interest left in the series by Nintendo for another 7 years, unless you count this Trojan horse trash, by turning the entire Metroid fandom against itself, creating so much irreparable damage that the series will still struggle to reclaim its reputation over a decade later. I was very excited for this game. I was very upset when it got delayed, and I honestly had a lot of fun with it. And I believe that given the right mindset, anyone can also have a great time with this game. I loathe this game. The horrific slander against the entire Metroid series is unforgivable. It spits in the face of canon. It spits in the face of lore, and worst of all, it spits in the face of Samus and everything else you've ever loved about this series. It's not that bad under the right light. Light it however you want, you're still spotlighting its turd. This game wasn't just the final nail in the coffin for Metroid, it also crushed our hopes of ever seeing the fabled Project Dread. Let's have an open mind and barbecue this filthy swine! Now I know this is gonna sound weird, but stay with me now. This game is half third person and half first person. You see, Team Ninja wanted to do some new style of 3D Metroid, but without leaning too heavily on the existing 2D or 3D formulas. So instead you hold the Wiimote sideways like an NES controller when you want to run around in third person, and point it at the screen like in Prime to enter first person. And yes, it's every bit as awkward as that sounds. Yeah, so Samus can now run around and perform all sorts of cool new actiony moves while in third person, but the auto-targeting's a little wonky and you can't shoot missiles in this mode at all. So you gotta flip the controller towards the screen quickly mid-fight, wait for it to register and calibrate, and then start firing in first-person mode, which you can't move during, by the way, considering the nunchuck would have made this gimmick impossible. They made sure to avoid the nunchuck to prevent players from taking the easy way out and asphyxiating themselves. Yeah, the point at the screen to shoot missiles thing is kinda slow and annoying, but the third-person action gameplay is surprisingly well done, and it's because of this game that future titles would be inspired to have Samus perform counters and other flashy moves. Well, one of those new moves died with this game, and for good reason. Thinking of other action games, Samus needed a fair way to dodge third-person projectiles and melee attacks while only relying on the simple D-pad. So to compensate, she was given a Bayonetta Witch Time style invincible dodge called the Sense Move. Yeah, so you can basically dodge almost anything in the game just by mashing the D-pad back and forth, which at the right time, during a very favorable window, will make Samus do a slow-mo dodge, even charge up an attack, and come out aiming at the enemy unscathed. She can even repeatedly spam this and live in the magical iframe dimension, completely impervious to attacks if you wanna. I get why they had to add this, but it just causes more problems than it fixes. Instead of having a dedicated button for dodges, Samus will weirdly stutter in place while waiting for a move to dodge, and making the window for dodging disgustingly wide only encourages its abuse further. We did actually get some new items in this game, and I rather like them. We have the energy part, which later returned in Metroid Dread, the diffusion beam similar to the wall-penetrating missiles from Fusion, and the Excel charge, speeding up Samus's charge times for beams and super missiles, and honestly, it might just be the best forgotten feature of this game. Oh, you wanna hear some bad stuff? Look at the length of this video. I'd say I could keep you here all day, but it looks like I just might! Yeah, so brace yourself. There are no health or ammo pickups from downed enemies in the game. Instead, you'll need to conserve your strength until you make it to the next navigation room to heal and restock. It's either that or use the new concentration ability, where at low HP, you can point the Wiimote up and let Samus stand in place to regain some HP and missiles. You starting to get the picture that this isn't really a Metroid game, but instead a quirky action game? So even if Samus does take lethal damage, she'll instead flash red and be left with 1 HP, giving you the chance to try and heal. But considering the enemies don't drop anything even if you do kill them, it's best to just ignore them and keep progressing to the next navigation room. You know, it's a bad mechanic when it discourages people from playing the game. So like I mentioned, the game's navigation rooms are scattered all over the map, but the map itself is super linear, taking heavy inspiration from Fusion's sector-based levels, but amplifying the hand-holding and lack of exploration options to an unbearable degree. And the most egregious part of the gameplay is how you actually go about acquiring your upgrades. Ugh. So this is half a story thing and half a gameplay thing. Early on, Samus meets up with Adam Malkovich, who demands that she strictly obey his commands for the entirety of the mission. Even though she's an independent bounty hunter and he has absolutely no jurisdiction over her whatsoever other than his own personal animosity for her for unjustifiably petty reasons. But anyway, Adam demands that Samus only use the upgrades he explicitly allows her to use from her arsenal she's already got equipped from Super Metroid. So they're kind of trying to find a creative reason as to why Samus has to reacquire all the upgrades she already has from the last game without basically bonking her upside the head at the beginning of every game. So this is better than just not addressing it at all, right? No! God, no! Besides, there was a perfectly reasonable explanation at the beginning of the game as Samus was hospitalized after the events of Super. Just say that wiped her slate clean and nobody would have cared. But now you're telling me that the Samus Aran is suddenly gonna curl up like an obedient puppy and let this negligent and downright abusive psychopath boss her around? But to be fair, some of her power-ups would cause some serious damage to the ship, like her power bombs, and this is Adam's reasoning for asserting his dominance over her actions. Okay, fine, power bombs I get, but what about her freaking space jump? Her grapple beam, or even her Varia suit? These things do absolutely no harm to the ship or to anyone else, but they only allow Samus to explore further and reach new places. But some literally serve no other purpose than to keep her alive! There's a point where Adam commands Samus into a molten hot sector and forces her to run across it unprotected multiple times. And it's not until she's about to die from heat exhaustion after literally burning alive for minutes on end that this sociopath tells her that the Varia suit is finally authorized and she's allowed to save her own life. It's ridiculous and unacceptably out of character for Samus, regardless of how badly the story wants to justify this incredibly foolish act of blind obedience. Yeah, the game's got a lot of bits like this, where it feels more like the story was made first and foremost, and the game parts just kind of exist just to splice all the cutscenes together. There's a disturbing amount of unskippable segments, where you're brought to a slow over-the-shoulder view, where Samus can only mosey on forward at the speed of a narcoleptic gerbil, until she finally reaches the end of the hallway or whatever. It happens so often, it's maddening. Like, run, Samus! Oh man, there's even this one bit where she's chasing after a frightened person she's trying to save, but you're forced to slowly stomp your way over to them like the Terminator, instead of, you know, acting like you're gonna save them. And then there's all those parts where the game throws the emergency brakes on because Samus notices something. So the game suddenly goes into first person, making you point all around the screen as Samus looks all over for that one particular thing that she wants you to notice. Sweet mother, I spent hours on one of these segments. No kidding. And I had just beaten a boss too. And since I was locked into this stupid first person thing, I couldn't save. I had to drop everything after pointing at literally everything I could find in 360 degrees and look it up online. And what the game wanted me to see absolutely pissed me off. there's a nondescript little blotch of green goo in the grass way behind you. You were supposed to straight up look in the opposite direction of where they faced you to notice something and look at the green amidst the green. And you know the worst part about the gameplay? It was published. No, the worst part is that Samus in gameplay is this wicked cool intergalactic action hero flipping around and performing all sorts of cinematic alien takedowns. However, the story kicks in and suddenly she's transformed into this quiet and dangerously submissive, emotionless, monologuing, timid weakling. There's a lot to unpack there. How about we just cut to the... whatever. Okay, so this is probably the best looking game on the Wii. The cinematics alone are so phenomenal for the system that it really does blow everything else out of the water. But this is undeniably the worst suit design I have ever seen. It's lost all of its character in favor of oversimplifying it. It's even uglier than that one time Samus dressed like a clown in Fusion. That stupid suit doesn't even look different when it gets its Varia and Gravity suit upgrades. It just kind of gets a light little purple haze around it for gravity when you're using it, and that's it. You wear this hideously plain Jane Billiards cosplay for the entire game. And the classic returning enemy and boss designs all suck. Like a lot. Nightmare looks like a puny toaster with arms and a slimy Thomas the Tank Engine face. Space pirates look like cut Star Trek costumes from the 60s. And Ridley looks like a duck on steroids. And why does Samus keep taking off her suit? It seems like Team Ninja came up with this digital power suit idea just so she can randomly strip down to her jumpsuit every once in a while for some shameless male gaze shots. Well, yeah, these are the dead or alive pervs. I didn't ask to see that perfectly sculpted space booty. I just wanted to play a Metroid game. I'm honestly shocked her boobs weren't flopping around in a space bikini, all things considered. Just like most video game movies, this game's just informed enough to reference things, but completely tone deaf in how to show them. Speaking of things game movies screw up. We're finally here. This game's obviously very cinematic and is a huge departure to the traditional Metroid games because of its focus on the story. It's a shame that the story itself might just be the most sloppily written story I've ever heard. And I absolutely don't care about talking spoilers, as I certainly don't recommend you waste any more of your valuable hours of your short life on this miserable floating rock in space than you already have on this game. So just like how every single excruciating cutscene is unskippable, so is this entire segment. So we open with a cinematic retelling of the ending of Super Metroid, with Samus defeating Mother Brain with the absorbed power given to her by the obliterated last Metroid. However, this time we get it all with Samus's new monologuing, mumbling on about the baby. Get used to it now, Samus is gonna have a bizarre character shift for this entire game. Samus will continually reflect on the baby throughout the whole game as if she lost her child or something, when before she only ever referred to it as the larva. This game is absolutely overflowing with forced motherly allusions like this to change Samus's character. The game's initials are M-O-M, for crying out loud. So after she recovers in a Galactic Federation hospital and reports on her successful eradication of the Metroid species, Samus begins aimlessly flying around and picks up a baby's cry distress signal coming from the bottle ship. I told you, and it only gets worse. After landing, Samus quickly meets up with the Galactic Federation's 7th Platoon led by her old commanding officer, Adam Malkovich. Well, considering how this game forced its way between Super and Fusion, and Adam's an AI in Fusion because he's caught a small case of the death, I gotta wager a guess that this dude's gonna die. The game makes darn sure that you see each of these team members and learn all their names before anything happens. It's like somebody forcing you to read their character bio pages before they even let you read the script. Theirs doesn't matter, not important, inconsequential, and might as well not even be here. Oh right, and there's this guy.
Remember me?
Nope, and I've played every Metroid game. I've even read the manga and some of those other side stories. I even read the manuals, dude. You're not special either. Remember Me here is actually a new character, just to frustrate longtime players and make new players feel left out of the loop. His name's Anthony, for the record. Yeah, I'ma stick with you not special. So Adam refuses to tell Samus why they're on the bottle ship, and instead of just shrugging and giving this reclusive jerk the space deuces he deserves and pissing off, Samus decides to follow him around like an abused puppy to help the platoon. And that's when Adam's superiority complex kicks in, and he tells Samus that she's not even allowed to take a piss without his express permission. And for reasons completely contrary to her character, she agrees. Because we get flashbacks here and repeatedly throughout the story, attempting to embellish on Samus and Adam's relationship over the years. Samus is depicted as a troublesome, angsty contrarian, continually disapproving of Adam's authority, culminating in an event where she ultimately second-guesses his decision to effectively let his own brother die, rather than give her the chance to try and save him. So she gets so upset with him, she storms off to live as a bounty hunter instead? Okay, so aside from that being completely retconning her former relationship with the guy, where it was Adam who convinced Samus to go because the Federation was holding her back, now she's playing it off like a problem wimpy child? Why? The best excuse I've ever heard for this was that Samus was retconned from being this tough intergalactic warrior and turned into a timid little girl with daddy issues because that better fits the Japanese stereotype for an attractive woman. She's submissive without question, portrayed as weak and unsure of herself, and is constantly looking for a man's guidance. I hate that! I didn't say it was an acceptable reason, I just said it was the most likely, considering this game was written by a Japanese man for Japanese boys, who I might remind you, questioned why the West even liked Samus at all beforehand. Even if it was excusable to try and make a character more attractive to your audience and wasn't blatantly sexist and objectifying this main character, it's incredible how strongly it ended up having the opposite effect. They even retconned, or at the very least undermined, Samus's backstory as being raised by the Chozo to instead being raised by Adam at the Federation, supposedly where he took the role of a disapproving father figure for her obstinate adolescence. Also, Samus claims that taking orders from Adam feels exhilarating when she blatantly said the opposite in Metroid Fusion. She also flat out says that she's never worked with Federation troops like this before, even though she just did in Prime 3, the most recent game at the time. It's like it can't even get its own story straight. We're already getting off track. Right, so Samus encounters this weird little gremlin thing eating a snack after midnight, eventually hatching its tiny body like a cocoon to become a large, awkward, teenage, feathery lizard man, and ultimately hatched from that body again to reach its Super Saiyan final form, Ridley. So I guess Ridley's a species now and not a one-off mad scientist space pirate experiment gone wild, and he evolves like a Pokemon, and as a duckbill. Did I miss something else here? Yes, actually. Supposedly the creepy scientist from the beginning who gave Samus' suit a good polish was actually scrubbing for valuable DNA to resurrect many of the creatures Samus encountered on her mission to Zebes in Super Metroid. Adjusts glasses. But she was paid to exterminate the Metroids and all that other stuff by the Federation! You're telling me they paid the most powerful bounty hunter in the galaxy to perform planet-wide genocide, all just to scrape the scraps of gooey flesh from her suit afterward and clone an army of all those creatures anyway? Yes. That's the stupidest! Apparently, Samus and company discovered that the entire bottle ship was actually just a massive bioweapons lab posing as a research facility. Oh, come on now, that's just the plot from Fusion. Yep. Wait, you're serious? Yes, this game is Metroid Fusion. Canonically before Metroid Fusion, but released way after Fusion. It's so dumb, I feel like I'm gonna give myself a brain aneurysm. Getting back to the Ridley subplot, because honestly that's all it really is, just a subplot. This entire game's just a tangled web of unrelated subplots. Anyway, sure, Ridley's appearance alone was enough to give pause to even the most diehard fans, even with all the bass-ackward reasoning behind it. But the real outrage came from Samus's reaction to seeing him, as he just kinda stands in front of her and roars a lot, patiently waiting for her scene to finish. Oh my god, I hate this so much. Samus has a panic attack, akin to a PTSD reaction to seeing Purple Space Dragon alive, and just in case you didn't pick up on the intense subtlety, she's even physically replaced with a little girl version of herself just to hammer it home that she's a scared, poor, defenseless little girl. This makes what, like the 7th time she's fought Ridley by this point so far? Aside from the fact that she never once even batted an eye at this guy appearing before, she straight up obliterated him in Super. She's not a traumatized little girl. She's a grown woman who has conquered her fears and overcome the most imposing of challenges thrown her way. To the game's credit, the last time she fought Ridley was his canonical death in Super, so him appearing at all would at the very least be surprising. That doesn't justify the sobbing toddler act at all. Even in the Metroid Zero Mission manga, the first actual hint of Samus having PTSD from Ridley's attack on her home as a child, she powerfully overcomes her own weakness and even mocks Ridley as she crushes him. To make matters worse, Samus doesn't even get to kill him in this game. He's killed off screen by some mysterious force and cringily left in the same pose he's found frozen in Metroid Fusion. As if anybody needed that explained. You build up this absurd return of Samus's arch nemesis only to give her some sissy reaction and kill him off screen? I'm getting ahead of myself, where was I? It's hard to tell with this game told in this mismatched order, jumping all over the place with this and that and the flashbacks and bouncing between plot threads, and so we gotta talk about the Galactic Federation Squad's side plot, because this is an absolute train wreck. Oh god, this. So while Adam manages the group from the safety of a control room, it soon becomes clear that one of the Federation troopers is secretly an undercover agent in disguise, silently assassinating the others one by one. And Adam is monitoring everyone on a viewer like an Among Us live stream, and he still can't figure out who the killer is. Yeah, and spoiler alert, nobody does. They straight up forgot about this plot thread. No kidding. They built it up for half of the freaking game and literally forgot to finish the story. This secret killer was played off like it was gonna be this huge mystery, going through the effort of teaching us all the Federation guys' names and whatnot, even trying to develop Samus and Anthony's relationship for a bit, for an impending reveal, but there's no payoff. I'm not kidding, it literally just stops. Samus even makes it clear in her drowning monologues that she's going to be casually referring to this backstabbing murderer killing off her allies as the Deleter. I can't even say it with a straight face. Forgetting about the Deleter is like if Sigourney Weaver forgot there was an alien on the ship killing all of her friends in Alien. Imagine she's the only one left and just kind of makes a sandwich, plays some solitaire, and goes to sleep. The end. The Deleter was even a boss, for crying out loud. So because fans couldn't bear this incomplete plot thread, they eventually determined that the Deleter had to have been the generic McShooty-Shoot number 3, James Pierce. Thing is, even James was found killed off screen, so it's not like it means very much. So why are we spending so much time talking about it? I don't know, ask the game! Back to the story. Remember that one person we mentioned earlier that Samus tries to save while chasing her down as fast as a starfish in a hamster wheel? Well, she's pretty important. So much so that I honestly blame her inclusion for clouding the writing of this game to the extent that the Deleter plot thread could be forgotten altogether. The woman claims to be Madeline Bergman, the head of the bioweapons project on the bottle ship, responsible for sending out the distress signal. But I'm not even gonna beat around the bush. That's a lie. Eventually, Samus discovers another woman claiming to be Madeline Bergman, and that the first one she met was actually an android AI gone rogue, hell-bent on using her weird evolving psychokinetic superpowers to control all of the living bioweapons on the bottle ship and kill people, I guess. Yeah, her plan kind of falls apart there considering how they're on a spaceship in the middle of nowhere, but whatever. Regardless, Samus learns that the goal of this illegal bioweapons lab was to artificially create Metroids immune to their only weakness, ice. And that Adam was secretly behind, get this, Project Metroid Warriors, which aimed to create this invincible army of killing machines, but had no idea about the Deleter. So the same conspiratorial faction of the Galactic Federation sent a group led by one of their own in on the job, but also an assassin to discreetly kill everyone on the team, and neither knew about each other. Are you seriously still following this nonsense? So Samus finds where the Metroids are being stored, in a secret sector just like it was or rather, well, it will be next time. But before she can enter and exterminate them all, she's shot in the back by Adam. When I first played this, I was like, oh man, Adam's the Deleter. Guess it makes sense considering how he's such a negligent psychopath towards Samus and completely oblivious to his own crewmates disappearing one by one. Yeah, no, that's too clever for this game. So he just shoots Samus in the back, disabling her suit right in front of a real living Metroid, nearly killing her in the process and waiting until the last possible moment to freeze it and save her. I swear this only happens so we can see Samus without her suit again. Adam claims that the infant Metroids are still young enough to be frozen, and he incapacitated Samus from stopping him from going into the hidden sector alone to kill the Metroids himself, because apparently he's supposed to be the good guy now. After locking himself in, Samus gives him her classic thumbs down, disapproving of his plan, as she did all those years before. Just to lock in that there was not and will not be a speck of development for her character. So Adam blows himself in the entire sector to smithereens, which is apparently something you can only do from the inside of the sector, but whatever. And it's not like we conveniently had the expert on killing these things standing right there doing nothing. And we're supposed to interpret this as heroic? Not only was it moronic, it was also pointless, cause guess what? There's still Metroids on the ship. In fact, there's a full-blown Queen from 2! Yeah, in fact, we get a boss coming back from each of the 4 mainline Metroid games at the time. Ridley from 1, the Queen Metroid from 2, Phantoon from 3 haunting the ship as a post-game surprise, and Nightmare from 4. Regardless of the execution, I think that's pretty cool, and I appreciate it. It's like getting a surprise gift you already own. It's nice and all, and you want to appreciate it, but you just kind of feel depressed even looking at it. Anyway, Samus faces off against the Queen Metroid alone to save the real Madeline Bergman, and for some reason I kept dying at the very end of this fight every single time, making me redo the entire thing. What happens is you finally freeze all the Metroids and beat down the Queen to activate a cutscene where you need to recognize that her mouth is a grapple point. Quickly use it and get swallowed by it, and even though they were never allowed by Adam and taught to you only once at the very beginning of the game and without any prompts whatsoever, drop a power bomb in its belly to kill it. Now what kind of game design is that? You spend the entire game being brainwashed into not using your upgrades, and when you finally need a crucial one you were explicitly told to never use, the game doesn't even drop a hint to do it as you're being boiled alive in the Queen's stomach. Were only players who beat the Game Boy game supposed to know that? So Samus saves Madeline Bergman and discovers that the imposter AI was intended to be used as the means to control the Metroids on the ship by replicating the symbiotic telepathic abilities of Mother Brain from Zebes. Yeah, it sounds like a good idea. Revealing the AI's true name as MB. Madeline Bergman, Mother Brain. Because we all needed that spelled out for us. And get this, since they weren't already laying down the motherly stereotypes thick enough, the reason MB lashed out and turned the bottle ship into a replica planet Zebes was because she felt betrayed by Madeline and the other scientists for wanting to alter her programming because she was developing a mother-daughter-like bond with Madeline. At this point, I'm not even gonna question the bonkers plot anymore. Are you sure you're still following us here? Anyway, it all culminates in what I can only describe as the most disappointing final boss in history. You watch as MB begins to command every living thing on the bottle ship to rain down hell around Samus, where you suddenly enter first-person mode, shoot her once, and the fight is over. That was seriously the final boss of a video game. You know, I guess they were trying to make it akin to the original Mother Brain fight, where it sits motionless taking punishment as it attacks you with the environment instead. In that sense, it's actually quite clever. The problem is, she goes down in one hit! And I don't mean some ultra-powered super missile or something. Literally one shot to the head and the fight stops dead in its tracks before it even begins. Okay, so then things start to get weird. Oh, excuse me. Now it starts to get weird? The bottle ship is instantly swarmed by Federation Marines who immediately kill MB. Then their colonel, whom I can only describe as being the most punchable man in history, has a soldier escort Samus and Madeline back to her ship to be questioned and possibly taken into custody. But it turns out that the soldier taking them is Anthony, the random dude we don't remember who definitely had a tragic death sequence falling into a pit of lava before the Ridley fight. I guess they forgot about that too. And padding out the runtime, Samus blabbers on and on about MB not being evil because Madeline cared for her like a daughter and she was only learning to control her emotions and blah blah. People died! You know all those people you swore to protect, including your former commanding officer? All dead. Except for Anthony. I guess he knew the Konami code or something. Hold on, you're trying to tell me Madeline didn't keep a backup of her own AI she considered to be a daughter to her? She's an android. And that's not even the end of it. After the credits roll, Samus goes back to the bottle ship to retrieve Adam's helmet because for some reason she can't let go of her disturbingly strong electric complex for the douchebag. Oh, and by the way, she does this as the ship is about to self-destruct and without her power suit for absolutely no other reason other than fan service, and we haven't had a countdown sequence yet. You know, sometimes I do wish we got a Metroid movie, but then I remember Other M and realize, no I freaking don't! This is some of the most mundane blah I've ever heard. Not just the bland environment tracks, but the action ones as well. It sounds like generic background junk from a fair use library. The sound effects stink. They couldn't even get the traditional ones right, like what? Sorry, my daughter wrote that part. Or was I? Couldn't even get the traditional ones right, like this became this. The best track by far is the Ridley theme, but that doesn't really count, does it? The rest are all cinematic background tracks for all the cutscenes. The problem is the voice acting. Samus in particular sounds indescribably bored with everything going on and soaks in all the terrible melodramatic writing. To be fair, Samus's voice actress, Jessica Martin, was specifically told to speak in a droning, emotionless monologue. I used to think this was to emphasize the psychological damage Samus must have suffered through due to her reckless adventures. However, nowadays, I can't even find myself buying my own bullcrap anymore. She's written like a high school student trying to stretch their way to fit one paragraph of research research onto a 10-page midterm exam. Don't blame the actors for a bad script. You're right, that's Sakamoto's fault. Poor delivery is the actor's fault. I feel displeasure at the inevitable acceptance of this game's disappointing interpretation of a historic silent protagonist.
You feel sad! Shut up and get a move on. I can sell you on this game. There is no way you can sell anyone on this game.
Just say 3 simple words. It's non-canon.
It's a contraction. Doesn't that make it hold on. Or does non-canon count as one word? Say it! But it wasn't even officially said anywhere! By anyone! It's been alluded to, yes, but that's it!
It doesn't matter.
What?
It doesn't matter what they say, or even what they think. Metroid Other M is just a game. It can't hurt you unless you let it. Now say it.
It's non-canon.
It's non-canon.
It's non-canon.
It's non-canon.
Who cares? It's non-canon.
You see, it's gonna be okay. Metroid Other M is non-canon.
You're right. Denial is the first stage of depression.
No, for me, it's true, and that's all that matters. So if I ever fire that game up or even think about it, I know it's not a real Metroid game. It doesn't affect or relate to anything in the main canon anyway, and knowing that lets me sit back, accept it, and enjoy it.
Just like that?
All those years of stewing in anger and disappointment got you nowhere. Just step back and look at what this game eventually inspired. Not only is it in the past, but it actually taught us all a valuable lesson in game design, allowing us to get to where we are now. It's been long enough. Just let it go.
I forgive you, Other M. I admit I've been harsh to you over the years, but it's true. Without you, we'd probably never have gotten the triumphant return of the series like we did. Maybe we just needed to learn of every single bad lesson at once in order to find perfection. I feel a tremendous weight being lifted off my shoulders when I say, I forgive you, Metroid Other M! I forgive you! Oh, wow, you were right. I do feel better, Bomb. I won't let this game hurt me anymore. Never again. Bomb? 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 Bomb?
And it was at that moment that I finally realized Bomb wasn't just gone, but he never existed at all. Was he simply a figment of my imagination, running wild like a child overdosing on Snickers and pixie sticks after Halloween? Or was he possibly a representational illusion stirred up by the deepest recesses of my aging mind, traumatized by my mother accusing me of devouring my own twin while I was still in the womb? No, he was neither, but also both. Bomb was me, a child in a man's body yearning for the chance to have fun again, to feel love, to feel—
Screw this crap! Whoa! What just happened? Shut up and review this dumpster fire. You don't want to know. The positive gamer in me went from having a great time with Metroid Other M to struggling to accept its many, many flaws, settling in a middle-of-the-road 5 out of 10. I genuinely did enjoy some aspects of this game, and it's admittedly a lot better on a second playthrough after 100%ing your first save file, where you're allowed to skip the cutscenes, but getting to that point just doesn't feel worth it. The critical gamer in me is obviously giving Metroid Other M 2 big thumbs down to go with its pitiful 2 out of 10. Ignoring the indescribable damage that this game caused to my favorite game franchise, it's one of the worst games I've ever played in general, with virtually no redeeming qualities. But what do you think? Let us know how your positive and critical sides rate Metroid Other M in the comments below. And that makes 100 episodes! Even though YouTube does everything in its power to quash my viewership, I appreciate each and every one of you that's been with us from Nier Automata to Metroid Other M. Because if you've seen this massive body of work and still don't think I care about you, then you're just playing with yourself.